Imagine the Earth not as the familiar home you walk upon, but as an ancient tapestry, torn, frayed, and incomplete. Between the threads of history lie silent gaps, whole empires swallowed, cities erased as if they had never been. No chronicles, no monuments, no graves to mourn them. Only whispers, somewhere beneath the waves, under deserts of shifting sands, or hidden beneath jungles too dense for sunlight, there once stood cities of stone and fire, places where thousands lived, worshipped, and dreamed. Now they're gone, vanished so completely that even memory itself has become uncertain. Were they destroyed by the rage of nature, by their own hubris? Or perhaps they were never meant to be remembered, tucked away like secrets in the Earth's deep vault. These are the ghost civilizations of prehistory, lost cities that disappeared without a trace. Their ruins, or the mere idea of them, still haunt us. And as we listen, as if by candlelight, we may hear their voices echoing through the silence, asking us to remember what the world has tried so hard to forget. The Earth, if you listen closely, hums with memory. Not the kind recorded in parchment or carved in marble, but a deeper, older resonance, like the faint vibration of a forgotten song. Most of us walk upon the ground unaware, seeing only what lies before us. Cities of glass and steel, roads of asphalt, monuments of concrete. Yet beneath our feet lies another world, layered like a palimpsest, written and rewritten countless times. Historians tell us that civilization is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old, a brief candle in the long darkness of human existence. But what if that is only the last chapter, the surface text? What if earlier stories were erased, cities swallowed, names unspoken, their traces dissolved by water, wind, or fire? Archaeology, for all its triumphs, is painfully fragile. A fire can erase a library, a flood can scatter a kingdom, an earthquake can turn a palace into rubble indistinguishable from stone. After centuries, after millennia, silence itself becomes the custodian of memory, and so we inherit not the fullness of the past, but fragments, broken pottery, half-buried walls, the outline of foundations that may or may not have belonged to something grand. But every now and then the earth betrays a secret. A diver stumbles upon steps leading down into the sea, carved with impossible precision. A desert satellite scan reveals geometric shapes beneath the sand, too straight and ordered to be natural. A farmer turns over his soil and discovers an idol, a coin, or the shattered remnant of a city no one remembers. These glimpses, brief and haunting, are like voices breaking through static, reminding us that history is not as solid as we think. We call them ghost civilizations, not because we know who they were, but because we do not. They are phantoms of memory, half-seen silhouettes at the edge of the firelight. We do not know their languages, their gods, or even their true names. What we inherit are echoes, legends of sunken lands, fables of kingdoms destroyed by divine wrath, myths of towers and temples swallowed by storms. Consider the tale of Atlantis. For more than 2 millennia, it has haunted the imagination of poets and seekers. Plato, the philosopher, spoke of a great island empire that fell in a single night, consumed by the sea. Was it allegory? A warning about pride and corruption? Or did he perhaps unknowingly preserve the faint memory of a real catastrophe, an echo from the deep prehistory of humankind? Yet Atlantis is only one voice in a chorus. All over the world, stories repeat the same refrain. The Greeks told of cities swallowed by earthquakes, the Hindus of kingdoms drowned beneath the waves, the Celts of islands that appeared and vanished like mirages. In the Pacific, entire cultures whisper of homelands that slipped beneath the ocean, their people scattered like stars across the sea. Is it coincidence that so many myths share the same theme? Or do these stories preserve memories of a time when the world itself shifted, when coastlines were redrawn, and the sea rose to claim the works of men? During the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than today. Vast plains now submerged once stretched across the continental shelves. There is no doubt, entire landscapes, perhaps entire cities, now lie beneath the waves. And so we ask what was lost there? Perhaps we imagine too much. Perhaps these were not mighty civilizations but small settlements, fishing villages swallowed by storms. Yet the scale of the legends, the persistence of their memory, suggests something greater. Why would so many cultures cling to the image of magnificent cities swallowed whole? Why the towers of gold, the palaces of shining stone, the streets lit by fire or starlight. Maybe, just maybe, memory lingers even when stones crumble. Maybe myth is a kind of archaeology of the soul, carrying fragments of truth through centuries of silence. But if that is so, then every myth becomes a map not to treasure, but to absence, to places where cities once stood, now gone without a trace. These absences call to us more powerfully than ruins. A ruined city at least leaves behind its bones. But a vanished city? That is pure mystery, an empty space where imagination rushes in. Stand by the shore at twilight and you might feel it. The uncanny sense that something waits beneath the water, whole avenues lined with columns, markets, temples, voices still echoing in airless dark. Walk across a desert at dawn and you might hear it, the silence pressing down upon you as though it remembers what you cannot, as though beneath the sand sleeps a city once full of life. These are not merely stories, they are mirrors. For in every vanished city lies a reflection of our own fragility. We imagine ourselves secure, surrounded by our machines and networks, confident in the permanence of skyscrapers and satellites. Yet time is ruthless. One catastrophe, one great forgetting, and we too could become shadows. Future generations might walk upon our bones, wondering what civilization built roads that led nowhere, towers that pointed skyward, machines that no longer move. They might call us a ghost civilization, and so the whisper of vanished cities is more than a mystery. It is a warning, a reminder that permanence is an illusion, and that even the greatest empires can dissolve like mist at sunrise. In the chapters that follow, we will walk among these shadows. We will wander to the sunken palaces of the Mediterranean, the drowned kingdoms of India, the lost metropolises of the Americas. We will trace the outlines of stone where jungles have devoured cities, where deserts have hidden towers, where oceans guard the silence of forgotten streets. Some of these cities we know by name: Atlantis, Dwarka, Heracleion. Others remain nameless, known only by their fragments, walls beneath the waves, carvings too ancient to place. Still others exist only in story, shimmering like mirages across cultures, refusing to die even when no stone remains. Each is a ghost, a presence without a body. Each beckons us closer into the silence. So let us listen together. The night is long, the world is quiet, and the ghosts of prehistory are waiting. There are some names in history that feel less like facts and more like dreams. Atlantis is one of them. Whispered across millennia, it has become not only the most famous of lost cities, but the very archetype of all forgotten worlds. To speak of Atlantis is to step into the threshold between history and myth, between memory and imagination. The story begins, as so many do, with a voice carried across time. The Greek philosopher Plato, writing in the 4th century BCE, left us the earliest account of Atlantis. In 2 dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, he describes a great island empire that lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the narrow strait we now call Gibraltar, where the Mediterranean spills into the Atlantic Ocean. Plato tells us Atlantis was vast, larger than Libya and Asia combined. It was a land of wealth and marvels, where kings ruled from a great capital built in concentric circles of land and sea. Bridges crossed canals, temples shone with gold and orichalcum, and gardens flourished beneath the sun. It was a civilization that, according to Plato, rivaled and surpassed even the grandeur of ancient Greece. And then, one night, it was gone. In a single day and night of misfortune, the island sank beneath the waves and vanished, leaving only legend in its wake. For Plato, this was not merely a story of marvels. He intended Atlantis as a moral parable, a warning against hubris. The Atlanteans, once virtuous and noble, grew greedy and corrupt, seeking power and conquest. The gods, angered by their pride, unleashed destruction. The tale is, at its heart, about balance, about the dangers of excess, and the fragility of human greatness. Yet even as a parable, the story lingers with uncanny weight. Why did Plato choose such detail? Geography, architecture, genealogy, if all he meant was allegory? Why speak of Atlantis as if it were a memory handed down from the older times? According to Plato, he did not invent the story himself. He claimed it came from the Egyptian priests of Sais, passed on to Solon, the great Athenian statesman, and then preserved until his own day. If true, then the roots of Atlantis stretch back not to Plato's imagination, but into the dim recesses of prehistory, to the deep memory of a civilization older than Greece itself, And so, for over 2,000 years, Atlantis has haunted human thought. Skeptics dismiss it as myth, no more real than the Garden of Eden or the Golden Age. But others search the seas and sands for proof, convinced that Plato's tale preserves a kernel of truth. Where then could Atlantis have been? Some say it lay in the Atlantic Ocean, where the Azores Islands rise like the scattered bones of a drowned continent. Others look to the Caribbean, pointing to Cuba or the Bahamas as possible sites. Still others turn toward the Mediterranean itself, Crete, Santorini, even Sardinia, each proposed as the true Atlantis hidden in plain sight. One of the most persuasive theories points to the island of Santorini, ancient Thera, where a catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE destroyed a flourishing Bronze Age civilization. The eruption sent tidal waves crashing into Crete, devastating the Minoans. Here perhaps lies a historical echo of Plato's tale, a rich maritime culture destroyed in a single night of fire and sea. And yet, the details do not quite fit. Plato describes Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, with rings of canals and palaces gleaming in the sun. Thera, though powerful, was small. Could Plato have exaggerated? Or was he preserving memory not of Thera, but of something even older, something drowned when the Ice Age ended and the seas rose hundreds of feet? If that is the case, then Atlantis might lie not in the Mediterranean at all, but far offshore, beneath the Atlantic, the Caribbean, or the Indian Ocean. Sonar scans have hinted at structures deep below the waves, geometric shapes off the coast of Cuba, stone-like formations near the Bahamas, pyramidal mounds in the Atlantic seabed. None are confirmed, yet each adds fuel to the fire of speculation. But perhaps the greatest power of Atlantis lies not in where it was, but in what it represents. Atlantis is the first ghost civilization, the great prototype of every city said to vanish without a trace. It embodies our fear that greatness is fragile, that in one breath the earth can reclaim everything we build. It is a reminder that civilization is not eternal but temporary, a sandcastle at the edge of the tide. And it is also a mirror. For when we imagine Atlantis, we imagine ourselves. We dream of towers glittering with gold, of cities humming with power and light. We dream of abundance without limit, of mastery over land and sea. And then, in the same breath, we imagine that dream undone, humbled, erased. Atlantis is both our highest aspiration and our deepest dread, the dream of empire and the inevitability of ruin. Even now the name persists. Writers, explorers, mystics, and scientists invoke it as shorthand for mystery. In the Renaissance, scholars spoke of Atlantis as if it might truly exist, hidden just beyond the horizon. In the age of exploration, sailors hoped to stumble upon it as they crossed the seas. In the 20th century, it became entwined with theories of ancient astronauts, lost technologies, and forbidden knowledge. Perhaps this persistence tells us something. Even if Atlantis never existed, the idea of Atlantis is real enough to shape imagination across centuries, to influence explorers, to inspire searchers, to haunt dreamers. In that sense, Atlantis is as real as any city carved in stone. But still, the question lingers. Could it have existed? Could there truly have been a civilization before the dawn of recorded history advanced enough to leave behind a story so enduring? If so, what did they know that we have forgotten? Close your eyes and picture it. A city of shining walls encircled by waterways that gleam like mirrors in the sun, gardens heavy with fruit, columns taller than the eye could measure, the hum of voices in marketplaces, the solemn prayers in temples whose domes reflected the sky. Then suddenly the ground shakes, the sea rises, the world shudders, streets flood, towers fall, fire and water embrace. And then, silence. All that remains is the echo. Atlantis may be gone, or it may never have been, but in either case, it lingers, as myth, as memory, as symbol. It is the first phantom on our journey through the lost cities of prehistory, a reminder that behind every legend lies a question, and behind every question lies the possibility that the Earth remembers more than we do. And so, as we step forward, let us carry Atlantis with us, not as an answer, but as a mystery. For if Atlantis is not real, then why does it feel so alive? And if it is real, then what else sleeps beneath the surface of the world, waiting to be remembered? There is something haunting about the sea. It is not merely water and tide, but a veil, a mirror, a silence stretched across half the world. Beneath its surface lies an immensity we can neither see nor fully comprehend, and in that unseen depth, imagination rushes in to fill the void. Atlantis, perhaps, is the most famous of the sea's secrets, yet it's not alone. The 19th century brought forth two other spectres, two other lost worlds whispered into being by the restless minds of explorers and scientists, Lemuria and Mu. They were not born of myth like Atlantis, but of speculation, born from science itself, though science would later turn away from them. And yet, though dismissed, they refused to die. The birth of Lemuria. The year was 1864. A zoologist named Philip Lutley Sclater studied the strange distribution of lemurs. He found their fossils not only in Madagascar and India, but also in faraway places, Africa and Southeast Asia, separated by vast seas. How could creatures so fragile have spanned such distances? His answer was daring. Perhaps there had once been a land bridge, a lost continent that stretched across the Indian Ocean, linking Madagascar, India and Africa together. He called it Lemuria, in honour of the lemurs who inspired the thought. In Sclater's mind, Lemuria was not myth, but hypothesis, a rational solution to a scientific puzzle. Yet the idea caught fire, spreading far beyond zoology. Soon, geologists, anthropologists, and even mystics seized upon it. Maps were drawn showing a vast landmass where now only water flows. Writers imagined great civilizations flourishing there, later swallowed by the sea. Even after continental drift and plate tectonics rendered Sclater's theory obsolete, Lemuria survived, not as science, but as legend. Lemuria in myth and spirit. In India, the Tamil people speak of Kumarikandam, a land lost to the ocean long ago. In their stories, it was a cradle of poetry and philosophy, where sages composed ancient hymns before the sea swallowed their homeland. Some see in Kumarikandam the echo of Lemuria, as if myth and science had converged upon the same ghost. Theosophists of the 19th century went further still. Helena Blavatsky, co-founder of the Theosophical Society, spoke of Lemuria as the home of a vanished root race of humanity, giant beings, wise yet flawed, who perished in cataclysm. In her writings, Lemuria became not only a continent but a stage in the cosmic drama of evolution. To others, Lemuria was paradise lost, a golden age before the fall. To modern seekers, it is sometimes invoked as a realm of spiritual awakening, a place whose energy still lingers beneath the waves. Thus, what began as zoology became mythology, then mysticism, then dream. The dream of Mu. If Lemuria belongs to the Indian Ocean, then Mu belongs to the Pacific. The name was first whispered by Augustus Le Plongeon, a 19th century archaeologist and adventurer. Studying the Maya ruins of Yucatan, he believed he had uncovered evidence of a primordial homeland, an immense continent that once stretched across the Pacific. He claimed the Maya themselves descended from this land, and that its name was Mu. His theories were bold, romantic, and deeply flawed. Scholars dismissed them, but the seed was planted, and others watered it. James Churchward, an Anglo-American writer, expanded the vision. In the 1920s and 30s, he wrote a series of books describing Mu in elaborate detail. According to Churchward, Mu was nothing less than the cradle of civilization, a continent larger than South America, supporting 60 million people. Its culture was advanced, its knowledge vast, and then, one night, fire consumed it. Volcanic eruptions tore the land apart and Mu sank beneath the Pacific, leaving only fragments, the scattered islands of Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. Churchward claimed to have seen ancient tablets in India, inscribed with the history of Mu, but the tablets were never produced, and scholars regarded his works as fantasy. Still, like Atlantis and Lemuria, Mu captured imagination. Even now it lingers in folklore, in whispers of a Pacific homeland lost to the deep, echoes across cultures. What makes Lemuria and Mu compelling is not only the theories themselves, but the strange way they mirror stories told across the world. In Polynesian myth, there are tales of islands that rise and sink, of homelands lost beyond the horizon. In South America, legends speak of sunken lands where ancestors once dwelled. In Asia, stories of drowned kingdoms ripple through Buddhist and Hindu traditions. It is as though across oceans humanity shares a collective memory of lands that once were, and then were no more. Could this be coincidence? Could it be that rising seas at the end of the last ice age, 12,000 years ago, left such a mark on human consciousness that every culture remembered? Or are these stories independent inventions, born of the universal fear of loss? Science points to the former. Sea levels did indeed rise, swallowing vast tracts of coastal land. What was once fertile plain became seabed. Villages, perhaps towns, may have drowned. If so, the memory of these drownings could have echoed through oral traditions, passed down until they became myths of whole continents lost, ghosts that refused to die. Today, scientists no longer believe in Lemuria or Mu as literal continents. Plate tectonics explains the movement of fossils, the spread of species, the shape of the Earth. Yet in the collective imagination, both persist. Lemuria and Mu survive not because they are factual, but because they are haunting. They answer a hunger in us, the hunger for deep roots, for origins older than time. They speak to a suspicion that what we know is only the surface, that beneath the waves lie chapters of history erased from memory. When seekers speak of Lemuria now, they describe a land of light, a civilization of harmony, an echo of spiritual wisdom. When dreamers invoke Mu, they imagine towers of coral and stone, shining temples, people who mastered the sea and sky before perishing in fire. Even in denial, these phantom continents breathe. Between science and myth, perhaps the truth lies somewhere between. Lemuria and Mu may never have existed as continents spanning oceans, but that does not mean nothing was lost. Beneath the waves of the Indian Ocean, archaeologists have discovered ruins, sunken temples off India's coast, drowned settlements off Indonesia. In the Pacific, ancient cities like Nan Madol rise from the sea, mysterious in their origin. Could it be that the stories of Lemuria and Mu are not pure invention, but distorted memories of smaller worlds erased by rising tides? Could fragments of truth have been woven into legend, magnified until continents were imagined? If so, then Lemuria and Mu are not lies, but metaphors. They are the ghost shadows of real losses, magnified through the prism of myth. A world without certainty. Close your eyes and picture it. A continent rising from the Indian Ocean, where poets write hymns in languages we no longer speak, where temples gleam against a dawn sky. Then, slowly, the sea rises. Villages drown. Shores recede. Temples crumble into waves. One generation remembers, the next forgets. Only fragments remain. Or picture the Pacific. Vast, endless, dotted with islands. In the centre, a great land, alive with gardens, palaces, and a people who chart the stars with wisdom older than we know. Then fire bursts from the earth, the sea roars, the land fractures. In days, perhaps in hours, the continent is gone. Survivors scatter, carrying only memory. Across centuries, they speak of a homeland called Mu. Whether real or imagined, these visions cling to us. For we too live in a fragile world, one where coastlines shift, islands vanish, and cities crumble. To believe in Lemuria and Mu is to believe in memory itself, the possibility that Earth has forgotten chapters of its own story, closing the circle. Lemuria, Mu, names born not of stone but of longing. They may never have existed, at least not as the maps once drew them, and yet in another sense they are utterly real. Real in the way a dream is real, shaping how we think, how we remember, how we imagine what came before us. They are the phantom continents drifting in the twilight between science and myth. Ghosts, yes, but ghosts that refuse to vanish. And perhaps that is the lesson. What matters is not whether Lemuria or Mu can be found upon a map, but what they awaken within us. A recognition that history is incomplete, that the world has forgotten more than it remembers, and that beneath the seas of time lie continents of silence still waiting to be heard. Beneath the restless waters of the Pacific south of Japan's Okinawa Islands lies a silence that does not feel natural. Divers who descend into those depths often describe not only the pressure of the sea, but the eerie sense of trespassing into a space that once belonged to others. The seabed here is not a wilderness of coral or rock. It is geometric, angular, strangely deliberate, shaped, it seems, by a vanished hand. This is Yonaguni, sometimes called the Japanese Atlantis, though its mystery is unlike any other. Discovered by chance in 1986 by a diver searching for hammerhead sharks, the underwater formation stunned the world. Where nature should have left chaos, there were instead steps, platforms, corridors, and walls that appeared carved with intention. The sea, it seemed, had preserved a riddle of stone. The first descent. Picture that moment. A diver gliding into blue twilight, the ocean pressing close, when suddenly the haze clears and something vast looms into view. Enormous terraces stacked like steps of a forgotten ziggurat, sheer walls rising 25 meters from the seabed, platforms broad enough to hold ceremonies or crowds, passages narrow as corridors. It is easy to imagine awe giving way to disbelief, for this is not a scatter of boulders, this is structure, form, design. The largest feature, known as the Yonaguni Monument, is over 150 meters long and 40 meters wide, rising nearly 27 meters from the ocean floor. Its sides are sharp and straight, its corners right-angled, its steps neatly aligned. Some divers have reported what appear to be roadways, archways, even what looks like a massive face carved into stone, a mask peering through time. Was it real architecture, or the trick of geology and imagination? Nature or civilization? Scientists were divided. Some geologists argued that the formations were entirely natural, the result of a sandstone fracturing along fault lines, eroded by currents into the appearance of precision. In their view, Yonaguni was no more human than the cliffs of Ireland or the basalt columns of Iceland. But others disagreed. Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist from the University of the Ryukyus, spent years diving and studying the site. He became convinced it was man-made, or at least man-modified. He pointed to features too orderly to dismiss: staircases, terraces, symmetrical walls, even what appeared to be a pyramid-like form. He believed Yonaguni could be remnants of a lost city, submerged thousands of years ago when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. Kimura even suggested links to the Yomon culture, a prehistoric people of Japan whose artistry stretched back 10,000 years. Could the Jomon, or some even earlier people, have carved these structures before the ocean swallowed them? If true, the implications were staggering. Yonaguni might represent the oldest known monumental architecture on Earth, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, a ghost civilization erased by water, the whisper of the sea, yet the sea guards its secrets closely. Divers report that the structures are not easy to interpret. Light flickers strangely beneath the waves, currents distort vision. What looks like a stair may be a broken ledge, what seems a carving may be erosion. And yet, some features resist dismissal. There are flat roads that appear to stretch in deliberate lines, a triangular pool carved like a basin, a broad stage-like platform that could hold 100 people, and the so-called stone face, resembling a giant human head, gazing eternally through the ocean gloom. Skeptics call these illusions, the human mind projecting patterns where none exist. But for others, they are too suggestive to ignore. Yonaguni feels inhabited, even now. It has the gravity of a place that once mattered. Myths of the Dragon's Triangle. Local folklore deepens the riddle. Yonaguni lies near the Dragon's Triangle, a region of the Pacific sometimes likened to the Bermuda Triangle, long associated with strange disappearances and mysteries. In Okinawan legend, there are stories of ancient kingdoms swallowed by the sea, of temples lost to waves. Some tell of a land called Ryugujo, the palace of the dragon god, said to rest beneath the ocean's surface. Is Yonaguni a memory of that palace, or a coincidence? Folklore does not give us facts, but it does offer echoes, reminders that the idea of sunken cities is older than the divers who rediscovered them. If it was a city, let's imagine. Thousands of years ago, when sea levels were lower, a city stands on a rocky promontory facing the sea. Its builders cut terraces into stone, shaping steps, platforms, and ceremonial spaces. They carve idols, align structures to the stars, and worship beneath the open sky. Life flourishes, rituals, trade, song. Then the seas rise. Slowly at first, then faster. Year by year, the waters creep closer, storms batter the walls. Finally, one great wave or earthquake strikes, and the city is gone. The ocean rolls in to claim it, burying streets in silence. The people scatter, their memory fading into myth. Millennia pass, fish swim where priests once stood, coral clings to terraces, and then, one day, a diver descends and sees what remains. Whether true or not, the vision is intoxicating. It ties Yonaguni not only to Atlantis, but to every drowned land across the world. Between belief and skepticism, most scholars remain cautious. Without artifacts, pottery, tools, inscriptions, there is little proof of human origin. The formations could be natural, and yet artifacts have been found nearby. Stone tools, remnants of human activity on Yonaguni Island itself dating back thousands of years, Coincidence or connection? Kimura himself insisted he found quarry marks, roads, and even writing on the stones. Critics dismissed his claims as overinterpretation, but divers who descend into Yonaguni often come back unsettled, convinced they have seen something extraordinary. Perhaps the truth lies in between, a natural formation modified by human hands. Nature provided the canvas, humanity shaped the details. If so, Yonaguni becomes less a question of either-or, and more a fusion of earth and culture, geology and memory. The ghost that endures. Whether natural or man-made, Yonaguni has already taken its place among the ghost civilizations. It is whispered alongside Atlantis and Lemuria, Dwarka and Heracleion. It has become a symbol of how little we know about our own past, and how fragile the line is between nature and human creation. For what is a ghost civilization if not ambiguity itself? A presence we cannot quite prove, but cannot let go. A shadow that hovers at the edge of certainty. Yonaguni embodies that perfectly. It may be nothing more than rock, but it feels like memory, and in the end, perhaps that is why it haunts us. Because beneath the sea, geometry and silence combine to form something uncanny. Because the ocean is a perfect keeper of secrets. Because we long to believe that the world once held more wonders than we know, and that the earth itself remembers them even when we do not. Closing the descent, stand on the cliffs of Yonaguni Island at sunset, and you can see the Pacific stretching endlessly, golden waves folding into horizon. Beneath those waves, the monument waits. It does not move, it does not speak, but it endures, like a stone dream cradled in water. Perhaps it is only geology. Perhaps it is the footprint of a vanished city. Either way, it is a ghost. And as we move deeper into our journey through lost civilizations, Yonaguni reminds us that history is not only in books or ruins, it is also in the spaces where we are not sure, in the questions left unanswered. The sea holds many such questions, and Yonaguni is only the beginning. Along the western coast of India, where the Arabian Sea rolls against the land of Gujarat, there is a city whose name carries both holiness and mystery, Dwarka, a name spoken in irreverence by millions, for it is said to have been founded by Lord Krishna himself, the divine hero of the Mahabharata. To walk there is to walk in myth, but to look beneath the sea nearby is to confront something stranger still, the possibility that myth and history overlap in ways we do not yet understand. A city of the gods. In the ancient texts of India, Dwarka is described not as a mere city, but as a jewel of civilization. The Mahabharata and the Bhagavata Purana speak of its golden palaces, its vast boulevards, its gardens perfumed with blossoms. Built on the western shore, it was said to shine like a second sun upon the earth, a city so splendid that even the gods marvelled at it. Krishna, incarnation of Vishnu, was said to have made Dwarka his capital after leaving Mathura. From there, he ruled, loved, and fought, weaving his destiny into the great epic of India. Dwarka was not only a city, it was the stage upon which divinity touched the mortal world. But the stories tell us something more. They tell us that Dwarka did not last. After Krishna's departure from this world, the city was swallowed by the sea, its splendour lost beneath the waves. In scripture, this is written as fate, as cosmic design. But what if it was also history? Whispers beneath the waves. For centuries, Dwarka remained more legend than fact, a holy city remembered in pilgrimage and prayer. Yet in the late 20th century, whispers began to rise that something lay hidden offshore. In the 1980s and 1990s, teams of marine archaeologists began to survey the waters near present-day Dwarka. What they found startled them. Beneath the waves, at depths of 4 to 30 metres, they discovered stone walls, streets and structures. Foundations aligned in grids, steps leading down, blocks of sandstone carved and fitted now encrusted with coral, potsherds, beads and tools retrieved from the seabed. It was as though a drowned city slept there, still faintly echoing with the life it once held. Carbon dating of wood recovered from the site suggested an age of nearly 9,000 years, far older than the Mahabharata, older even than most known cities on Earth. If the dating holds true, it would mean Dwarka's story stretches back to the very dawn of civilization, when much of human history was still unwritten. Could it be that the legends preserved in India's epics are not mere imagination, but cultural memory of a city that once stood, then drowned? The meeting of myth and history, It is rare, almost impossible for myth to align so closely with archaeology. Myth speaks in poetry, history in stone, yet Dwarka stands at the crossroads of both. On one side, the Mahabharata tells of Krishna's city, radiant and strong, destroyed by the sea. On the other, divers find ruins lying exactly where the stories said they would be, offshore, beneath the restless Arabian waters. The resonance is too strong to dismiss, and yet not all scholars agree. Some argue that the underwater ruins may be natural formations or settlements from later times mistaken for something older. The carbon dating of wood could reflect driftwood carried by currents. Skepticism remains, as it always does in matters where myth and evidence entwine. But for many in India, the discovery is not mere science, it is affirmation. The scriptures were right, the city of Krishna was real, and the sea indeed claimed it. A vision of Dwarka's splendour. Close your eyes and picture Dwarka as the texts describe it. Golden towers rising against the western sky. Streets broad enough for chariots, lined with courtyards where music drifted at dusk. The sea glittering at its edge, ships sailing from its harbours to distant lands. Temples ringing with chants, their spires reflecting in water. In the evenings, Krishna himself, prince, warrior, god, walks among the people. The city pulses with life, a harmony of divinity and humanity. Dwarka is not just a capital, but a beacon, a meeting point of heaven and earth. And then the end comes. The sea, eternal and patient, advances. Waters rise against the walls, foundations crumble, storms batter the coast. Slowly, inevitably, the city yields. One day, Dwarka is no longer above the waves, but beneath them. Only the memory remains, carried in song, scripture, and pilgrimage. The ghost city today, modern Dwarka, built on the coast, remains one of the 7 most sacred cities of Hinduism. Pilgrims come to worship Krishna at the Dwarkadish temple, to walk streets steeped in prayer. Yet just offshore, divers slip beneath the surface and touch the stones of another Dwarka, silent and drowned. It is a ghostly juxtaposition, a living city of faith above the water and a dead city of mystery below. Together they form a bridge across millennia where legend and archaeology meet in uneasy embrace. Tourists sometimes ask divers what it feels like to swim through the ruins. The answers vary, but many speak of awe tinged with melancholy, as though one is trespassing in a place still sacred, still claimed by the sea. Some say the silence of underwater Dwarka feels almost like reverence itself. What Dwarka means. If Dwarka truly dates back 9,000 years, it changes our understanding of civilization. It suggests that organised urban life may have flourished far earlier than textbooks allow, then vanished in catastrophe. If true, it would place Dwarka among the oldest known cities in the world, an equal to Jericho, Çatalhöyük, and Mohenjo-Daro. But even if not, even if the underwater structures are younger or natural, the symbolism remains. Dwarka embodies the persistence of myth. It shows us that stories can outlast stone, that memory can carry truth across oceans of time. In this sense, Dwarka is not only about archaeology, it is about trust. Trust in the voices of ancestors, trust in the way myth preserves fragments of reality, even when centuries blur them. Dwarka reminds us that myth may be a kind of archive, encoded not in paper, but in reverence. Between faith and silence, skeptics will continue to debate, believers will continue to revere, the sea will continue to conceal. And perhaps that is as it should be. Dwarka is not meant to be fully explained. Like Atlantis, like Yonaguni, it belongs to the realm of the ghostly, half seen, half believed, wholly mysterious. Its power lies in uncertainty, in the shimmer between faith and doubt. To dive into Dwarka's waters is to confront that shimmer. Stones loom in the blue, silent, heavy with time. You reach out, touch them, and feel the weight of something that might be civilization, or might be only nature playing tricks. Either way, the sea does not answer. The sea never answers. Closing the chapter, at twilight when the sun sinks over Gujarat, the Arabian Sea turns gold. Waves lap against temples where Krishna is still worshipped, as they did thousands of years ago. And out there, beyond the breakers, the drowned city sleeps, unseen but never forgotten. Perhaps it is only stone, perhaps it is a divine memory, perhaps both. But when the tide whispers at night, and the stars glimmer like lamps above the sea, one can almost believe that Dwarka is still alive beneath the waves, that its streets still echo with footsteps, its towers still rise in memory, its god still walks among its people. Dwarka is not gone, it is only hidden, half in myth, half in water, forever poised between presence and absence. The Nile, eternal river of Egypt, has always been a giver of life. Upon its banks rose temples, pyramids, and dynasties that endured for thousands of years. Yet where the river meets the sea, where its green waters mingle with the Mediterranean's blue, lie secrets that Egypt itself seemed to forget. For there, beneath waves and silt, rest the ruins of Heracleion and Canopus, two cities once glorious, now drowned, their memory preserved only in fragments of text until divers found them sleeping in the sea. Whispers in ancient scrolls. Long before their rediscovery, the names Heracleion and Canopus appeared in the writings of Herodotus, Strabo, and other ancient chroniclers. Heracleion, they said, was once a mighty port, the gateway to Egypt for ships crossing the Mediterranean. Canopus nearby was famed for its temples and festivals, a city of gods and revelry. But as centuries passed, their names grew faint. They were places spoken of in stories, but absent from maps. By the Middle Ages they were ghosts, cities remembered only by scholars and priests, their true locations unknown. Some believed they were myths, inventions of poets. Others suspected they had simply been lost to the shifting Nile, buried in mud and memory. It was not until the late 20th century that the sea itself gave them back. Rediscovery beneath the waves. In the year 2000, a team led by French marine archaeologist Frank Goddio revealed what had been hidden for more than 1,000 years. Using sonar, magnetometers, and patient dives, they uncovered the outlines of entire cities lying 6 kilometers off the Egyptian coast, near modern Alexandria. The discovery was breathtaking. Beneath the water lay temples, colossal statues, docks, coins, jewellery, and stelae, inscribed with hieroglyphs, the bones of cities once thought lost forever. Heracleion and Canopus were not myths. They were real, and they had slept in silence for more than a millennium. Among the finds was a towering statue of Hapi, god of the Nile's floods, his face calm even in exile beneath the waves. There were sphinxes, shrines, and inscriptions confirming the city's names. The sea had preserved what memory had erased. The glory of Heracleion. In antiquity, Heracleion, also known as Thonis, was Egypt's great maritime gate. Foreign ships passed through its harbours, bringing goods from across the Mediterranean. It was here, legend says, that Heracles himself first stepped onto Egyptian soil, giving the city its name. Heracleion was a place of temples and wealth, where merchants traded spices, grain, gold, and linen. Pilgrims came to honour Osiris, whose great temple dominated the city. Festivals filled its streets, reenacting the mysteries of death and rebirth. But prosperity was fragile. By the 2nd century BCE, Alexandria rose to dominance, eclipsing Heracleion. Silt clogged the harbours, earthquakes shook the delta, and then came the sea. Slowly, relentlessly, the waters swallowed Heracleion, until by the 8th century CE it had vanished entirely beneath the waves. Canopus, city of revelry. If Heracleion was commerce, Canopus was ecstasy. Located just east along the coast, it was famous for its Temple of Serapis and for festivals that drew revellers from across Egypt and Greece. Here, song, wine, and devotion mingled in nights of abandon. Ancient writers spoke of Canopus with both admiration and scandal, for it was said to be a place of both holiness and excess. Like Heracleion, Canopus succumbed to disaster. Subsidence, earthquakes, and rising seas claimed it. Its temples fell silent, its streets drowned. For centuries, only whispers of its name remained, until divers brought it back into the light. The catastrophe. How could entire cities vanish so completely? The answer lies in Egypt's fragile delta. The Nile is a shifting river, depositing silt, altering its channels, weakening the land. Combine this with earthquakes and the phenomenon of soil liquefaction, when water-saturated ground turns to quicksand, and whole foundations can collapse in moments. For Heracleion and Canopus, the earth quite literally gave way. Temples, houses, and statues slid into the sea. The waters rose, covering them, hiding them from human eyes for more than 1,000 years. Diving into the ghosts. To dive among these ruins today is to feel both wonder and melancholy. Divers swim past colossal statues lying on their sides, once guardians of temples, now draped in seaweed. Pillars rest half buried in sand. Inscriptions glimmer faintly under the touch of torchlight. Words that last spoke to the living more than a millennium ago. There are anchors from Greek ships, coins stamped with Ptolemaic kings, jewellery still gleaming. Each object whispers of a moment when the city was alive, when traders haggled in markets, when priests lit incense, when music spilled from festival halls. Now fish weave between the stones and silence reigns. The city is not gone, but transformed, half memory, half reef. What the sea preserves. One of the most striking discoveries was a massive stela inscribed with decrees of Pharaoh Nectanebo. Its presence confirmed beyond doubt the true name of the city, Thonis Herakleion. It was as if the city itself had left behind a signature, waiting patiently to be read again. Other finds included ceremonial boats used in Osiris rituals, perfectly preserved in mud. These boats once carried effigies of the god through the canals, reenacting his death and resurrection. To find them intact beneath the sea was like stumbling into a frozen ritual, halted but not erased. It is this uncanny preservation, that makes Herakleion and Canopus feel less like ruins and more like ghosts. They are not fully gone. They are cities that breathe underwater, still whole in ways most ruins are not. The symbol of drowned cities, Herakleion and Canopus remind us that civilization is fragile, even when it feels eternal. They stood for centuries, thrived for millennia, and yet the earth reclaimed them. Earthquakes, floods, and the shifting Nile proved stronger than stone and memory. And yet they also remind us of resilience. Though drowned, they were not erased. The sea preserved them, holding them in trust until divers came to listen. Their rediscovery is not only an archaeological triumph, but a symbolic one, a reminder that the past never truly dies. Standing at the shore, stand on the modern shore of Egypt, and the Mediterranean seems calm, gentle even. It is hard to imagine that beneath its waves sleep two great cities, their temples still standing, their God still watching. But if you close your eyes, you may hear it, the faint echo of hymns to Osiris, the laughter of festivals in Canopus, the creak of ships unloading grain in Herakleion's harbour. The sea has silenced them, but not extinguished them. They are cities of ghosts waiting to be remembered. Closing the chapter, Herakleion and Canopus teach us something essential, that history is never truly gone, only hidden. For centuries they were thought to be myth, their names whispered in doubt, and yet beneath the sea they endured, waiting with patience only stone can know. Now they rise again, not in splendour, but in story. And as we journey among ghost civilizations, we carry them with us, reminders that what vanishes is not always lost, and that the sea may still cradle secrets far older, waiting for us to descend. Far across the open Pacific, beyond coral reefs and lagoons, lies an island where silence drapes itself like a cloak. The island is Pohnpei, in Micronesia, a place of dense jungle and volcanic stone. But on its eastern shore, hidden among mangroves and tidal waters, stands one of the strangest ruins in the world, a city of stone built on the sea itself. Its name is Nan Madol. Scholars call it the Venice of the Pacific. The people of Pohnpei call it a place of spirits, and divers, historians and dreamers call it one of the great mysteries of human history. A city on the sea, Nan Madol is not like other ruins. It is not carved into a mountain or raised on dry ground. Instead, it consists of more than 90 artificial islets, built atop a coral reef and connected by tidal canals. Its walls are formed of enormous basalt columns, prismatic stones, some weighing tens of tons, stacked like giant logs to create platforms, walls and temples. Walking through Nan Madol feels impossible, as if human hands could never have managed such a feat. The scale is overwhelming. Some walls rise nearly 30 feet, built from columns longer than men are tall. Channels flow between the islets like watery streets, giving the city its Venetian comparison. And yet, unlike Venice, Nan Madol was not crowded with gondolas and marketplaces. It was a ceremonial city, a seat of power and ritual shrouded in sacredness. The Lords of Nan Madol. Local legend says Nan Madol was founded by two brothers, sorcerers who arrived from afar bringing with them both knowledge and magic. They were called Olosopa and Olosipa. With their spells, they levitated the massive stones into place, raising walls and temples where before there had been only reef and sea. These brothers became the forebears of the Sodelur dynasty, a line of rulers who governed Pohnpei for centuries. Nan Madol became their stronghold, their ceremonial capital. Here they ruled with divine authority, commanding both reverence and fear. But the legends tell us something more. The Sodleur were not entirely beloved. Their rule was strict, demanding tribute from the island's clans. Over time, resentment grew and their power waned. Finally, the dynasty fell, its city left behind as a ghost of stone and water. How was it built? Even setting aside myth, Nan Madol is staggering. Archaeologists still puzzle over how it was constructed. The basalt columns that form its walls are not native to the reef where the city sits. They had to be quarried from volcanic outcrops miles away. Some weigh more than 50 tons. How did the islanders move them across sea and swamp? How did they lift them into towering walls without cranes or beasts of burden? Even today, with modern machinery, recreating such a city would be difficult. Theories abound: the use of rafts and canoes, ingenious ramp systems, vast communal labour. Yet the logistics remain daunting. Some scholars estimate it would have taken centuries to complete, involving thousands of workers, and so the myth of levitating stones persists, not because we believe in sorcery, but because human imagination struggles to picture the means. Nan Madol feels beyond possibility, a city born of mystery as much as labour, life in the water city. What was Nan Madol like when alive? Archaeological evidence suggests it was not a city of bustling markets, but of priests, chiefs and rituals. Temples dedicated to deities rose above the canals. A central complex called Nan Dowers served as the royal enclosure, its walls the highest of all. There were burial vaults for rulers, places of sacrifice and shrines to sacred eels, which were revered as symbols of fertility and power. The common people of Pohnpei did not live within Nan Madol. They lived outside on the main island and brought tribute to the Sodleur rulers. The city was less a dwelling place than a sacred seat of authority, a ritual capital floating on the sea. Imagine processions of priests moving across causeways, torches reflecting in black water, chants rising against the night. Imagine offerings of food, shells, and gifts carried into temples where gods were invoked. The canals, silent now, would have echoed with ritual life, the air heavy with incense and salt. Decline and abandonment, the Sodleur dynasty eventually fell, replaced by new rulers, and Nan Madol declined. Without the labour to maintain it, the canals silted, the walls sagged, the temples fell into ruin. By the time Europeans first saw Pohnpei in the 1800s, the city was already long abandoned, cloaked in legend. Local stories spoke of curses upon those who lingered there. Spirits were said to guard the canals. Fishermen avoided its waters after dark. Nan Madol became not only ruin, but ghost, haunted in both memory and presence. Even now, locals tread carefully. They speak of whispers in the ruins, of strange lights, of an oppressive atmosphere that lingers after sunset. Nan Madol is not only archaeology, it is spirit. Theories and mysteries. What was Nan Madol truly for? Scholars debate. Some see it as a fortress, a way for rulers to control clans by forcing them to live apart, isolated on islets. Others argue it was purely ceremonial, a ritual city designed to embody divine power. Some speculate it may even have been a kind of engineered sacred landscape, aligning with stars or tidal flows, but whatever its function, the mystery of its construction remains. How did a society without metal tools or draft animals raise such a city? The absence of clear answers leaves a room for wonder and for speculation. Fringe theorists speak of lost technologies, even of ancient contact with civilizations long gone. Archaeology, more cautious, admits simply that we do not yet know. A ghost that still breathes. To visit Nan Madol today is to step into a dream. The jungle presses close, the sea laps at stone, and canals gleam like mirrors beneath mangrove roots. The basalt walls still stand, immense and silent, their weight defying time. Walk along the ruins, and you feel watched. The air is heavy, the atmosphere charged, as though the city remembers itself. Birds cry in the distance, water drips in shadow, and every sound seems amplified, echoing against walls that once heard chants and prayers. At night, the place feels even stranger. Moonlight glints on the water, and the black basalt rises like teeth from the lagoon. It is easy to believe the stories of spirits, of rulers who still linger, of sorcerers whose magic raised the stones. Nan Madol is not merely ruin, it is presence. Nan Madol's place among ghost civilizations. What sets Nan Madol apart is its uniqueness. There is no other city like it on Earth. No other civilization chose to build its capital entirely on the sea, atop artificial islets, with walls of prismatic basalt stacked like giant logs. In that sense, it is the perfect ghost civilization, impossible to categorize, resistant to explanation, standing apart from the familiar trajectory of human history. It is an island of mystery, as if designed to haunt us, and yet its very existence reminds us of human ingenuity. For however it was built, it was built. Ordinary men and women, with stone tools and willpower, raise something that still staggers the imagination. That in itself is a kind of magic, perhaps greater than any legend. Closing the chapter, as the tide rises around Nan Madol, the ruins seem to float, suspended between worlds, land and sea, past and present, myth and history. It is a place where time folds, where the ordinary dissolves into the uncanny. Nan Madol endures not as a ruin alone, but as a whisper, a reminder that human ambition has always reached beyond the possible, and that the sea, though patient, always takes back what it is given. And so, as we leave Nan Madol, the ghost of the Pacific, we carry with us its silence, a silence broken only by the rush of waves and the memory of chants that once rose into the night sky. Nan Madol is gone, yet it breathes. A city of stone and water, a ghost that refuses to drown. Where the Mississippi River winds like a silver serpent through the heart of North America, there once rose a city so vast, so unexpected, that its memory still unsettles the stories we tell about this land. Today it is little more than grassy mounds beneath the Midwestern sky. Silent earthworks rise like green pyramids, their slopes softened by centuries of rain. Cars rush along highways nearby, suburbs sprawl, and most passers-by never pause to ask what lies beneath. But this was once Cahokia, the greatest city of pre-Columbian North America, larger in its time than London or Paris. A metropolis of tens of thousands, it flourished, then vanished, leaving behind only whispers in earth and silence. A city in the wilderness. Imagine the Mississippi Valley around the year 1050 CE. Where now stand farmlands and highways, there was once an expanse of plazas, palisades and temples. At its height, Cahokia stretched across 6 square miles, with neighborhoods, markets, ceremonial centers, and fields feeding a population perhaps as high as 20,000, or even 30,000 people. At its heart stood Monk's Mound, a colossal earthen pyramid rising more than 10 stories high, the largest pre-Columbian earthwork north of Mexico. From its summit, rulers looked out over a landscape shaped not by nature, but by human vision. Carefully aligned mounds and plazas, their geometry echoing celestial patterns. For centuries, many Americans believed this continent had no great cities before Europeans arrived. But Cahokia tells another story. It was not wilderness, but civilization, complex, organized, and powerful. The people of Cahokia. The builders of Cahokia are often called the Mississippian culture, a name given by archaeologists to the widespread mound-building societies of the American Southeast and Midwest. But Cahokia was their crown jewel, the largest and most advanced of all. These were people who lived by farming corn, beans, and squash, who traded across vast distances, their goods reaching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. They crafted fine pottery, shell ornaments, and copper figures. They built homes of wood and thatch, arranged in neighborhoods that spread across the floodplain. And at the center they raised mounds, not for burial alone, but for temples, elite residences, and ceremonial platforms. The city was both urban and sacred, blending daily life with cosmic meaning. Woodhenge and the sky. Among Cahokia's most enigmatic features is Woodhenge, a circle of massive timber posts aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. From its center, observers could watch the sun rise over Monk's Mound at the spring equinox, marking the turning of seasons. This was not mere astronomy. It was ritual, a binding of heaven and earth. The city itself became a calendar, its layout a reflection of the cosmos. Life in Cahokia was woven into the rhythms of sky and season, the movements of sun and stars mirrored in mounds and posts. Such alignments remind us that this was not only a city of farmers and rulers, but of priests and visionaries who sought to harmonize human life with the universe. A city of contradictions. Yet Cahokia was not only harmony. Archaeology reveals signs of both grandeur and violence. Excavations have uncovered evidence of human sacrifice. Pits filled with the remains of young women, buried as offerings, perhaps to consecrate mounds or honour the gods. Other burials suggest elite rulers accompanied by retainers in death, their power extending even beyond life. The palisade that once encircled the central precinct speaks of defence, of tension within or without. Cahokia was powerful, but power often breeds unrest. And so, beneath the story of splendour lies another, one of inequality, of ritual blood, of a society both luminous and shadowed. The vanishing. By the 14th century, Cahokia was gone. Its mounds stood, but its plazas fell silent. What happened? Theories abound. Some point to environmental stress, deforestation from the need for wood, soil exhaustion from intensive farming, floods or droughts that destabilize the delicate balance. Others suggest disease or internal strife. Perhaps rival groups rose against the elites. Perhaps the people simply dispersed, seeking more sustainable ways of life. Whatever the cause, the city unraveled. By the time Europeans arrived in the Mississippi Valley, Cahokia was already centuries abandoned. Its mounds were overgrown, its story forgotten even by many of the native peoples nearby. It had become a ghost city, vanished so completely that only Earth remembered. The rediscovery. When settlers and explorers stumbled upon Cahokia's mounds in the 18th and 19th centuries, they could hardly believe they were made by Native Americans. At the time, prejudice blinded many. They imagined instead a lost race of mound builders, unrelated to the indigenous peoples. Some even speculated about Phoenicians, Atlanteans, or Hebrews crossing the sea. Only in the 20th century did archaeology begin to restore the truth, that Cahokia was the work of the ancestors of Native Americans, a testament to their ingenuity and complexity. The myth of the empty wilderness crumbled before the weight of earthworks that could not be denied. Walking among the mounds. Today, visitors can walk among Cahokia's mounds, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Grass covers their slopes, birds wheel overhead, and the air is heavy with summer heat. From the top of Monk's Mound, the modern skyline of St. Louis glimmers in the distance, a reminder of how civilizations rise and fall, sometimes upon the same ground. The mounds are silent, but the silence is not empty. It is full of footsteps that once crossed plazas, of voices raised in ceremony, of laughter in homes long vanished. It is a silence that breathes memory. The ghost in the heartland, Cahokia, is not forgotten. It lives on in archaeology, in scholarship, in the pride of native descendants. Yet in another sense, it is deeply ghostly. For how could a city so vast, so influential, disappear so thoroughly that its very existence was doubted? The answer lies in how fragile memory is. Without stone temples or written records, Cahokia faded into obscurity, its achievements swallowed by time. Its story reminds us that greatness is no guarantee of permanence. Cahokia haunts us not only because it vanished, but because it was here, in the heart of a continent many assumed had no cities. It whispers that history is always deeper than we think, that civilizations rise even in places we overlook, and that silence itself can be a monument. Closing the chapter, stand upon Monk's Mound at dusk, and you may feel it. The weight of thousands who once gathered here, the hum of a city alive with ritual and power. The wind rustles grass where priests once lit fires. The horizon glows red, as it did for them. Cahokia is gone, yet it lingers. A metropolis without memory, a city erased yet undeniable. Its earth still rises from the Mississippi floodplain like a heartbeat. It is one of North America's great ghost civilizations, a reminder that even in the heart of familiar lands, silence can conceal wonders as great as any Atlantis. In the heart of Arabia, where dunes shift like waves of a golden ocean, there is a legend of a city lost to the desert. It is whispered in the Quran, remembered in Bedouin tales, and sought by explorers for centuries. A city of towers, of wealth, of defiance, swallowed not by water, but by sand. Its name is Ubar. To some it is Iram of the Pillars, to others the Atlantis of the Sands. Whatever its name, it is one of the great ghost civilizations of human memory, both myth and history, both mirage and ruin. The Quranic echo. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Fajr, there is mention of a people called Ad, and of their city, Iram Dhat al-Imad, Iram of the lofty pillars. They are described as mighty, builders of great monuments, unrivaled in their time. but they grew arrogant, turning against God, and so a punishment came. A furious storm swept over them, lasting 7 nights and 8 days, leaving nothing but silence. The city was lost, its towers buried, its people erased. For centuries, scholars debated whether Iran was real or allegory. Was it a true city, or simply a moral parable, a story of hubris and divine wrath? Yet among the Bedouin of the desert the story persisted. They spoke of a city that had once thrived in the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, the largest sand desert on earth. They called it Ubar, the empty quarter. To understand Ubar, one must imagine the Rub al-Khali. Stretching across much of Arabia, it is a sea of dunes, some taller than skyscrapers, shifting endlessly with the wind. Temperatures soar, water is scarce, and survival is tenuous. Yet in antiquity, caravans crossed it bearing frankincense, myrrh, and spices to markets across the world. Along these routes, oases and trading posts flourished, way stations where travellers could rest, camels could drink, and goods could be exchanged. Ubar was said to be one of these, but greater than all the others, a dazzling city rising improbably in the desert, the search for Ubar. For centuries, Ubar was a rumour that lured explorers. Medieval geographers wrote of a city of pillars buried in the sands. In the 19th century, European adventurers set out to find it, but returned with nothing but mirages and disappointment. Some declared it a myth, like El Dorado or Shangri-La, an illusion born of longing. Others insisted it must exist, hidden beneath dunes waiting to be uncovered. It was not until the late 20th century that the desert began to yield its secret. Satellites and secrets. In the 1980s, archaeologists turned to a new tool, satellite imaging. NASA's Landsat program captured images of Arabia, revealing faint lines beneath the desert, ancient caravan routes etched into the land by centuries of travel. Following these lines, researchers traced paths that converged upon a single site in southern Oman. There they found ruins buried in sand, collapsed walls, towers, and a massive sinkhole where the ground had given way. The site became known as Shissa, identified by many as the fabled Ubar. Excavations revealed pottery, incense burners, and fortifications. The city, it seemed, had been both a trading post and a fortress, controlling the flow of frankincense, the white gold of antiquity. Frankincense was no mere perfume. It was sacred, burned in temples from Egypt to Rome, carried along trade routes to India and China. Ubar, at the crossroads of this trade, grew rich and powerful. But then, like the people of Ad in the Quran, Ubar fell, collapsed into the sands. The ruins of Shissa showed signs of disaster. The fortress walls had collapsed inward. Beneath it yawned a sinkhole, a vast limestone cavern whose ceiling had given way. The city's water supply, drawn from underground channels, may have failed. Caravans may have shifted routes, bypassing the site, and then the desert moved in. Dunes swallowed towers, storms erased paths, and Ubar disappeared. It is easy to imagine the last days, merchants departing with the final caravan, leaving behind walls that would soon crack and crumble. The wind rises, carrying sand in waves. Day by day, the city shrinks beneath the dunes until only silence remains. The desert is merciless. It does not preserve as kindly as the sea. What it covers, it erases. Between myth and reality, was Shissa truly Ubar? Some scholars argue that Ubar was not one city but a region, an entire network of settlements in the frankincense trade. Others suggest it was more legend than fact, a symbol of wealth and arrogance punished by fate. And yet the discovery at Shissa gave form to the legend. For the first time, ruins lay where myth had pointed. The Quran's city of pillars seemed less allegory and more memory, a memory blurred by centuries but not erased. Ubar as archetype. Like Atlantis, Ubar has become more than a place. It is an archetype of loss, a city of wealth undone by hubris, of prosperity undone by nature. It stands as a reminder that no fortress is secure against the shifting earth. For the Bedouin, the story of Ubar was a caution. Pride leads to downfall, arrogance to ruin. For modern dreamers, it is a symbol of the desert's power to conceal entire worlds. For archaeologists, it is a puzzle half solved, inviting further search. Walking the ruins, to stand at Shissa today is to stand at the edge of silence. The sinkhole gapes, its depths dark and unfathomable. Stones lie scattered, the remains of towers once proud. The air is hot, the sand relentless, and the desert seems ready to reclaim even what little remains. Close your eyes and you can almost hear the echoes of caravans, the bells of camels, the murmur of traders, the chants of priests burning incense to the gods. But open them, and only the wind moves, whispering through emptiness. The ghost in the desert. Every civilization we have explored has been shaped by water, the sea, the river, the flood. But Ubar is different. Its ghost is of sand, of drought, of collapse inward rather than outward. It reminds us that just as water can swallow, so too can earth. Perhaps that is why Ubar haunts us. It shows that even in the most barren places civilization blooms, and even there it can die. Closing the chapter, as the sun sets over the Rub al Khali, the dunes glow like embers, endless and shifting. Somewhere beneath them lies Ubar, or pieces of it, its towers long gone, its name half myth, half memory. The desert does not give up its ghosts easily. But Ubar remains alive in story, in scripture, in legend. It is the Atlantis of the sands, a reminder that cities can vanish as swiftly into silence as they once rose into glory. And as the stars ignite over the empty quarter, their light falling on dunes that hide the past, one can almost believe that Ubar still waits, its towers shimmering like a mirage just beyond reach, calling to those who dare to listen. Long before the pyramids, long before the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, even before the earliest dynasties of Egypt, there rose a city of mud and clay on the fertile plains of Anatolia. It had no streets, no palaces, no kings that we know of, and yet it thrived for more than 1,000 years, a hive of humanity unlike anything else in prehistory. This was Çatalhöyük, a place as ancient as memory itself, a city that seemed less like an early step towards civilization than an entirely different path, now lost to time. The birth of a settlement. Around 7500 BCE, as glaciers receded and the Neolithic age began to dawn, groups of farmers and herders gathered in southern Anatolia, near the banks of the Konya Plain. They built not scattered huts, but a settlement so dense, so intricate, that it defies the imagination. At its peak, Çatalhöyük may have housed between 5,000 and 8,000 people, making it one of the largest communities in the world at the time. Imagine that. While much of humanity still wandered in small bands, here was a teeming proto-city, buzzing with life. A city without streets. What makes Çatalhöyük so strange is not only its age, but its design. There were no streets, houses pressed against each other like cells in a honeycomb, their walls shared, their roofs flat and broad. People did not enter their homes through doors on the ground, but through holes in the roofs, climbing down ladders into rooms below. The rooftops served as both streets and plazas. Life unfolded above the city as much as within it, children playing, neighbours visiting, goods carried along sunlit paths of clay. From above, the city must have looked like an unbroken labyrinth, a mosaic of rooftops and chimneys, alive with movement. It was a city without streets, without temples, without walls of separation, and yet it endured. Life in the labyrinth. Inside the homes of Çatalhöyük, life was intimate and symbolic. Each house was a rectangle of mud brick rooms, plastered and painted, its hearth glowing with fire, its walls decorated with images of animals, hunters, and strange geometric designs. Some homes bore murals of vultures and headless humans, perhaps echoes of rituals we can barely guess at. Others depicted bulls and wild beasts, reminders of the hunt and the power of nature. Burials took place beneath the floors. The dead were laid to rest beneath platforms where the living slept, their presence woven into daily life. In some houses, skulls were removed, plastered, and painted. Faces remade to preserve memory, ancestors gazing eternally from beneath the floor. This was not merely practical. It was symbolic, a merging of life and death, past and present. The house itself was a vessel of memory, a sacred space as much as a dwelling. The cult of the goddess. Among the artifacts found at Çatalhöyük are small figurines of women, broad-hipped, seated, sometimes flanked by animals. These have often been interpreted as representations of a mother goddess, a symbol of fertility and life. Some scholars believe Çatalhöyük may have been a society centered on goddess worship, its rituals tied to fertility, harvest, and the cycles of life. Others caution against certainty, noting that the figurines may have been toys or charms. Yet whatever their meaning, they speak of a culture steeped in symbolism, in a spiritual vision woven into the fabric of everyday life. A city without kings. Perhaps the most mysterious aspect of Çatalhöyük is its lack of hierarchy. There is little evidence of social classes, no palaces, no temples larger than homes, no graves richer than others. In a world where later cities would rise upon inequality, Çatalhöyük seems almost egalitarian. Power, if it existed, was subtle, shared among households and clans rather than concentrated in rulers. What held them together? Perhaps kinship, perhaps ritual, perhaps a collective vision of life and death interwoven. Whatever it was, it endured for centuries. The vanishing. Around 6000 BCE, Çatalhöyük began to decline. The reasons remain uncertain. Climate may have shifted, resources may have dwindled. Disease, crowding, or social strain may have taken their toll. Slowly the great hive unravelled. Families left, moving to smaller settlements. The labyrinth grew empty. Finally the city of clay was abandoned, left to crumble back into earth. Its silence endured for millennia until modern archaeologists uncovered it in the 1950s. What they found was astonishing. A city so early, so strange, it seemed almost alien, as though another path of civilization had briefly blossomed, then vanished. What Çatalhöyük means. Çatalhöyük challenges the story of civilization. It tells us that cities need not begin with kings, temples, and armies. They can begin with houses pressed close together, with rooftops as streets, with ancestors buried beneath the floor. It shows us that community can be organized not only by power, but by memory, ritual, and shared vision. It suggests that human imagination has always been diverse, that the very idea of civilization could have taken many forms, some of which we have lost. In this sense, Çatalhöyük is not only a ruin, it is a ghost of possibility, a reminder of what might have been. Walking among the ruins. To walk among Çatalhöyük's excavations today is to step into an ancient dream. Mud brick walls rise only waist high, outlines of homes that once stood tall. The air smells of dust and earth, the Anatolian sun glaring above. And yet, if you close your eyes, the labyrinth comes alive. You hear footsteps across rooftops, children's laughter carried on the wind, fires crackling in hearths below. You sense the presence of ancestors beneath the floor, their faces painted, their memory alive. It is a city that never truly died. It simply dissolved into soil, leaving behind its essence in clay and silence. A ghost among ghosts. Among all the civilizations we have encountered, Atlantis drowned, Ubar buried, Cahokia forgotten, Çatalhöyük feels the most spectral, for it does not fit our categories. It is not a lost empire or a vanished metropolis, but a way of living that has no equal today. It is a ghost not of stone, but of clay and fire, of human closeness and ritual life. Its haunting is not of grandeur, but of intimacy. It whispers to us that humanity's story could have unfolded differently, that the path we walk was not the only one. Closing the chapter, as night falls on the Konya plain, the wind sweeps across fields where once stood the labyrinth. The stars shine overhead, the same stars the people of Çatalhöyük once traced from their rooftops. Their city is gone, but its memory endures, in clay figurines, in murals of vultures and bulls, in the earth itself. It is a ghost civilization, not drowned or buried, but dissolved into the soil, haunting us with the possibilities of another world. And as we move forward in our journey, we carry Çatalhöyük with us, not as a ruin, but as a whisper of what it means to live, to remember, to dream. In the parched lands of Sind, where the Indus River winds its slow ancient path, lies a city of baked brick and forgotten order. Today it is little more than ruins beneath the desert sun, but once it was among the greatest cities of the ancient world. Its name means Mound of the Dead. This was Mohenjo-Daro, a jewel of the Indus Valley civilization, built more than 4,500 years ago. Long before Rome, long before Athens, long before the temples of the Maya, here rose a city of streets and baths, wells and drains. A city of extraordinary vision, whose disappearance remains one of history's great enigmas. A city ahead of its time. Archaeologists first uncovered Mohenjo-Daro in the 1920s, astonished to find a metropolis dating back to around 2600 BCE. What they found challenged every notion of early civilization. The city was not a haphazard sprawl, but a masterpiece of planning. Streets ran straight and broad, laid out in a grid like those of a modern city. Houses of baked brick lined them, each with courtyards, rooms, and staircases. Wells provided water, while a network of drains carried waste away. An urban sanitation system more advanced than much of the world would see again until the 19th century. At the city's heart stood the Great Bath, a vast pool lined with brick, fed by its own well and drained by a sophisticated system of channels. It was likely a place of ritual cleansing, of community gathering, a symbol of the city's devotion to both purity and order. Imagine it. Thousands of people, farmers, artisans, merchants, priests, all moving through streets that hummed with trade and ritual. Stalls selling beads, pottery, grain, children playing in courtyards, priests or elders gathering at the Great Bath, their chants echoing against brick walls. Mohenjo-Daro was alive, orderly, vibrant, a civilization of mystery. Mohenjo-Daro was only one jewel in a vast necklace of settlements stretching along the Indus River and beyond. This Indus Valley civilization, sometimes called the Harappan culture, encompassed hundreds of towns, covering an area larger than Mesopotamia or Egypt. And yet, for all its scale, it remains a mystery. Its people left no deciphered texts. Their script, inscribed on seals and tablets, remains unreadable. We don't know their kings, their gods, or their stories. We can only glimpse them through ruins, through patterns of brick and stone. This silence is haunting. Here was a civilization so advanced in planning, so vast in reach, yet we do not know their names. They are ghosts even in their own time, their voices stilled. The fall into silence. Around 1900 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro began to decline. The reasons are debated. Some point to shifting rivers. The Indus, restless and unpredictable, may have changed course, leaving the city without water or flooding it beyond repair. Others suggest climate change, droughts drying the land, monsoons failing, harvests dwindling. Disease may have spread in the crowded city. Social unrest may have grown. By 1700 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro was largely abandoned. The once great city crumbled into ruin. Its bricks were carried away by villagers for new buildings. Its memory dissolved into earth and sand. For millennia, no one remembered its name. The controversial theories. In the 20th century, some scholars and fringe thinkers offered more dramatic explanations. A few pointed to evidence of skeletons found in the ruins, some lying face down as if struck by sudden catastrophe. Others claimed traces of vitrified stone. Rock melted as if by extreme heat, suggested the city was destroyed by fire unlike any natural blaze. From this arose sensational theories that Mohenjo-Daro was annihilated by an ancient nuclear explosion, a forgotten war of unimaginable power. Passages from the Mahabharata, describing weapons brighter than 1,000 suns, were invoked as evidence. Mainstream archaeology finds little support for such claims. The skeletons may have died at different times, the heat marks the result of ordinary fire, yet the allure of the idea lingers. For Mohenjo-Daro's silence is so profound that even the wildest theories seem to fill its void. Walking among the ruins. To walk Mohenjo-Daro today is to feel the weight of time. The sun beats mercilessly on crumbling brick, streets stretch straight and empty, lined with walls only chest high. Wells gape dry and silent. The Great Bath lies exposed, its steps leading into a hollow of stillness. And yet, there is order here, even in ruin. The city's geometry is intact, its vision unmistakable. You can trace the outline of homes, see where families cooked, slept, prayed. You can follow drains that still slope precisely to carry water away. It is as though the city still breathes beneath the dust, as though the people have only stepped away for a moment. The ghost of the Indus. What makes Mohenjo-Daro a ghost civilization is not only that it vanished, but that it did so completely. Its memory was erased so thoroughly that when rediscovered, it shocked the modern world. Unlike Egypt, whose hieroglyphs spoke across millennia, or Mesopotamia, whose clay tablets preserved kings and laws, the Indus left us silence. A silence so deep that even today, with all our science, we do not know the names of their rulers, their gods, their heroes. It is as if Mohenjo-Daro was not merely abandoned, but deliberately erased from memory, swallowed by the earth itself. What it teaches us. Mohenjo-Daro reminds us of the fragility of knowledge. Here was a civilization that mastered urban planning, trade, and ritual life, and yet left no story we can read. In a sense, its greatness is invisible, seen only in bricks and drains. It also reminds us of humility. We imagine civilization as a steady climb toward the present, But Mohenjo-Daro proves that advanced societies rose and fell long before us. Their wisdom, their rituals, their dreams, all gone, leaving us to guess. In that guessing lies their ghostly power. They compel us to wonder, to imagine, to fill silence with questions. Closing the chapter, as the desert sun sets over Sindh, the ruins glow red, their bricks warm as embers. Shadows stretch across straight streets, across wells that no longer hold water. Mohenjo-Daro is silent, but it is not empty. It hums with questions, with absence that feels alive. It is a city without a name, a story without words, a ghost whose silence speaks louder than any chronicle. The mound of the dead is also the mound of the forgotten, and in that forgetting lies its haunting. For Mohenjo-Daro whispers to us that all cities, even ours, may someday be dust and silence, their stories lost to time. Beneath the turquoise waters off Cuba's western tip, far from the eyes of fishermen and tourists, lies a silence so strange it unsettles even the most rational minds. Here, in the depths of the Caribbean, sonar once traced the outlines of what seemed impossible, massive stone structures lying more than 600 meters below the waves. The year was 2001. A team of researchers scanning the seabed with side-scan sonar detected patterns no natural reef should form: geometric shapes, massive blocks, symmetrical lines. Some appeared like pyramids, others like roadways or plazas. To the eyes of the scientists, it looked like the ghost of a city drowned in the abyss. And so was born the legend of the sunken city of Cuba, sometimes called the Atlantis of the Caribbean. The Discovery. The story begins with Paulina Zalitsky, a marine engineer of Russian descent, and her husband, Paul Weinsweig. They were working for their company, Advanced Digital Communications, mapping the seafloor off the Guanaja-Cabibes Peninsula in western Cuba. Their mission was practical, surveying for treasure, geology and resources. But what their sonar revealed was anything but ordinary. The images showed structures so immense, so ordered, that they seemed deliberate. Blocks as large as 16 feet by 20 feet, some arranged in pyramid-like stacks, others in grids suggestive of avenues and plazas. The researchers were stunned. Nature can create patterns, but rarely such symmetry at such scale. And if these were man-made, then they were impossibly old, for the site lies half a mile underwater, at a depth no known human civilization could have built upon. The enigma of depth. Why is depth the heart of the mystery? Because 600 meters below sea level is far beyond the rise of oceans since the Ice Age. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last glaciation, seas rose by more than 100 meters, flooding vast coastlines. But they did not rise 600 meters. If the Cuban structures are truly man-made, then either they are unimaginably old, dating back to a time when sea levels were drastically different, or tectonic shifts plunged them downward. Both possibilities challenge conventional history. A glimpse beneath the waves. The sonar images alone were extraordinary, but they were not enough. The team dispatched a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, to capture video. Grainy footage emerged, showing massive stone blocks stacked upon each other, some appearing polished, others aligned in rows. In one frame, something like a pyramid loomed. In another, what seemed like a broad avenue stretched across the seabed. There were even whispers of inscriptions carved into stone. The images were tantalizing but inconclusive, flickering glimpses through the darkness of deep water. Still, they fueled speculation across the world. Newspapers called it a lost city, perhaps even Atlantis itself. Skepticism and silence. Mainstream scientists urged caution. Sonar images can be deceptive, they said. Light and shadow in video footage can create illusions. Natural geology, such as basalt flows or coral formations, can mimic human architecture. And yet, doubts remain. The scale, the symmetry, the arrangement. Too many details seemed intentional. Even some skeptics admitted the site merited further study, but funding faltered. Political tensions between Cuba and the United States made research difficult. Expeditions slowed, reports dwindled, and the mystery sank again into obscurity. To this day, no comprehensive peer-reviewed study has confirmed or disproved the city. It lingers in limbo, half discovery, half rumour. If it was a city, suppose for a moment the structures are indeed man-made, what would that mean? It would mean that a civilization capable of quarrying, transporting and arranging massive stones existed in the Caribbean at least 12,000 years ago, long before Egypt, Mesopotamia, or the Indus. It would mean that history is incomplete, that advanced societies flourished in an age we call prehistory, then vanished without a trace. Imagine it, a city gleaming beneath a tropical sun, plazas filled with people, pyramids rising above palm groves, avenues bustling with life, ships of wood and reed sailing across turquoise seas, carrying trade between islands and coasts. And then, catastrophe. Perhaps a sudden shift of tectonic plates plunging the land downward. Perhaps floods and storms of a melting ice age. In days or centuries the city is gone, its towers swallowed by the ocean. Survivors scatter, their stories dissolving into myth. The memory endures only as legend, perhaps in whispers of Atlantis, or in Caribbean myths of drowned lands, echoes of Atlantis. The Cuban discovery inevitably called to mind Plato's tale of Atlantis, a mighty civilization flourishing in a distant ocean, destroyed in a single night, swallowed by the sea. Could the Cuban ruins be that Atlantis? Skeptics dismissed the idea. Plato spoke of the Atlantic beyond the Pillars of Heracles, not the Caribbean. And yet the Caribbean lies at the edge of that same ocean, its islands like stepping stones across the waves. Could Plato's words have preserved a distorted memory of something real? The timing is suggestive. Atlantis was said to have fallen around 9,000 years before Plato, a date aligning eerily with the end of the Ice Age, when seas did indeed swallow coastlines. If not Atlantis, then perhaps another ghost civilization altogether, one the world has entirely forgotten. Between hope and silence, what makes the Cuban city so haunting is not only what it might be, but what we do not know. For 2 decades, little new evidence has surfaced. The site lies deep, expensive to explore, politically fraught, and so it lingers in the twilight of knowledge, too compelling to dismiss, too uncertain to embrace. It is a ghost not only of stone, but of evidence, a riddle suspended between discovery and obscurity, diving into imagination. Close your eyes and picture it. You are a diver descending into the deep Caribbean. The light fades, the water cools. Suddenly out of the gloom shapes emerge, blocks, walls, a stairway leading nowhere. You swim over a plaza that once rang with footsteps, past a pyramid whose tip now houses only fish. Silence presses in, broken only by the hiss of your own breath. For a moment you feel not like an explorer but like an intruder, walking in the halls of the dead. And then, just as quickly, the vision fades. The structures recede into darkness, and you wonder if you imagine them at all. The ghost of the Caribbean. Whether natural or man-made, the sunken city of Cuba has already taken its place among the ghost civilizations. It embodies the tension between myth and science, between longing and doubt. It whispers that the earth may still hide chapters of history beyond our imagination. It may be nothing more than geology, or it may be the oldest city humanity ever built. In its ambiguity lies its haunting power. Closing the chapter, as waves crash gently on Cuba's coast, tourists stroll beaches unaware of what may lie beneath. The sea, brilliant and calm, conceals its secret well. But far offshore, in depths where sunlight dies, there may still stand the remnants of a city that should not exist. It is Atlantis of the Caribbean, ghost of stone and water, dream and possibility. Until the day divers return and truth is revealed, it will remain what it has always been. A city not of certainty, but of mystery. And perhaps that is fitting. For what is a ghost civilization, if not a mirror of our own desire to believe that the past was richer, stranger, and deeper than we can know? In the desert of southern Jordan, hidden among cliffs of sandstone, there lies a city that seems more dream than stone. To approach it is to walk through a narrow gorge, the Sick, its walls towering hundreds of feet above, sunlight barely reaching the ground. The path twists and turns until, suddenly the rock parts and a vision appears, Al-Khazne, the treasury, its columns and pediments glowing rose-red in the sun. This is Petra, a city carved from living rock. Once the capital of a kingdom that controlled deserts and trade routes, now one of the world's most haunting ruins. For centuries it was forgotten by the outside world, its memory erased until rediscovery in the 19th century. It is a ghost city not drowned, not buried, but hidden in plain sight, its silence guarded by stone. The Nabateans. Petra was the creation of the Nabateans, an Arab people who flourished between the 4th century BCE and the 1st century CE. They were masters of water and trade, carving out an empire not through conquest but through ingenuity. Their land was desert, dry, and merciless, yet they found ways to make it bloom. They carved channels and cisterns, capturing every drop of rain, storing water in hidden reservoirs. They controlled the caravan routes that carried frankincense, myrrh, and spices from Arabia to the Mediterranean, charging tolls and growing rich. At the heart of their kingdom they built Petra, a city both fortress and sanctuary, its monuments carved directly into cliffs of sandstone that glowed red and gold at dawn and dusk. The city carved in stone. Unlike most cities, Petra was not built but sculpted. The Nabateans cut temples, tombs, and palaces directly into canyon walls, transforming nature itself into architecture. The most famous is Al-Kazne, the treasury, its facade adorned with Corinthian columns, urns, and statues. Legend said it held the treasure of Pharaoh, though in truth it was a tomb. Nearby rise the royal tombs, their fronts towering like cathedrals, hollowed into cliffs where kings once lay. Atop the city looms Ad-Dair, the monastery, its monumental doorway framed by cliffs, reached only by hundreds of steps. It is less tomb than temple, a sanctuary hewn into rock where priests and pilgrims once gathered. Yet Petra was not only monuments. Excavations reveal markets, homes, theatres, and avenues. It was a living city, alive with trade and ritual, its streets filled with languages and cultures from across the ancient world. A city of water. The true marvel of Petra was not its stone, but its water. In a land where rain was rare, the Nabateans engineered a system of channels, aqueducts, and cisterns so sophisticated that Petra thrived in abundance. Terraces grew crops, fountains flowed, and the city could sustain tens of thousands of people in a desert that should have been unlivable. To master water in the desert is to master life itself, and in this mastery lay the strength of Petra, decline and disappearance. But no city, however brilliant, is immune to time. By the 2nd century CE, Rome had absorbed Nabatea into its empire. Trade routes shifted, wealth dwindled, and Petra began to fade. Earthquakes struck, toppling monuments and crippling aqueducts. By the 7th century, Petra was largely abandoned, its people scattered, its memory fading into obscurity. For nearly 1,000 years the city slept. Locals knew of it, whispered of it, but to the outside world it vanished, a ghost hidden in stone. Rediscovery. In 1812, the Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguised himself as a pilgrim and persuaded Bedouin guides to lead him through the sick. When the cliffs opened to reveal the treasury, he beheld a sight few outsiders had seen in centuries. His journals brought Petra back into the world's awareness. Slowly, travellers returned. Artists painted its rose-red cliffs, poets praised it, archaeologists excavated it. Yet even now, much of Petra remains half-buried, its secrets guarded by rock. The city of ghosts. What makes Petra haunting is its duality. It is both ruin and presence. Its facades still stand, crisp as if carved yesterday, yet its streets are empty, its tombs silent. Walk the sick at dawn, when the treasury glows in first light, and you feel as though you are trespassing in a city still alive, its people just out of sight. Enter the royal tombs, where echoes linger, and it feels as though voices wait in shadow. Climb to the monastery at dusk when the desert turns gold, and the silence is so profound it seems almost holy. Petra is not dead, it breathes in stone. Myths and legends. Legends cling to Petra like ivy. Bedouin tales spoke of treasure hidden in the urn atop the treasury, and even today bullet holes mark where hopeful shooters tried to shatter it. Others said Petra was a place of jinn, spirits haunting the canyon at night. Some have even linked Petra to biblical stories, the land of Edom, the city of Selah, or the wilderness where Moses struck a rock to bring forth water. Whether true or not, such stories weave Petra into the fabric of sacred memory, making it not only a ruin but a symbol. The lessons of Petra. Petra teaches us that civilization is not only built upon stone, but upon ingenuity. The Nabateans did not conquer vast lands, yet they thrived by adapting to their harsh world, by mastering water, by blending cultures. Their city reflects this blend. Hellenistic columns beside Arabian motifs, Roman theatres beside Eastern altars. It also teaches us fragility. Even with all their brilliance, the Nabateans could not prevent Petra's decline. Trade shifted, empires rose, earthquakes struck, and their city faded into silence. And yet, Petra endures. Its facades are not ruins, but memories, carved so deeply into rock that even time could not erase them. Closing the chapter, As the sun sets over Petra, the cliffs glow crimson, shadows lengthening across tombs and temples. The sick grows dark and silence falls heavy. It is in this silence that Petra reveals itself, not only as a ruin but as a ghost. A city half as old as time, carved from stone yet alive in memory. Forgotten for centuries, yet refusing to die. Petra is a reminder that even in abandonment, beauty endures. Even in silence, cities speak. And in every ghost civilization there is a lesson, not of loss alone, but of resilience, of memory, of the strange ways time preserves what it should have destroyed. The rose-red city is not gone. It lingers, carved forever into the bones of the earth. North of Mexico City, in a broad valley where mountains frame the horizon, there stretches a city of stone so immense that it seems less human than divine. Pyramids rise against the sky, avenues cut straight as arrows, and plazas yawn wide enough to swallow armies. Even in ruin, the place is overwhelming. This is Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were born. To the Aztecs, who discovered its ruins centuries after it was abandoned, it was not a city of men but of deities. And in truth, standing there today, it is easy to believe, for Teotihuacan is a riddle. Who built it? Why was it abandoned? How did a city so vast, so powerful, vanish without leaving even a name for its rulers? A metropolis before its time, Teotihuacan was founded around 100 BCE and grew rapidly, reaching its zenith between 200 and 600 CE. At its peak, it may have housed 100,000 to 200,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at the time. Its scale staggers the mind. The Avenue of the Dead, a central boulevard, runs for more than 2 miles, flanked by temples, palaces and pyramids. At its heart stands the Pyramid of the Sun, 65 meters high, built of millions of tons of stone and clay. Nearby rises the Pyramid of the Moon, guarding the northern end of the avenue, and at the southern end the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, adorned with sculpted heads of serpents and jaguars, once gleamed with painted murals and ritual fire. This was not only a city, it was a cosmos, a map of the heavens carved into earth, the unknown builders. And yet, for all its grandeur, we do not know who built Teotihuacan. The city rose centuries before the Aztecs, who discovered it already in ruin. They revered it as sacred, naming it the City of the Gods, but they did not know its true founders. The people who raised its pyramids left no written records we can decipher. Their language is unknown, their rulers unnamed, their myths lost. We know them only through murals, sculptures, and the vast silence of stone. It is as though the city itself, not its people, was meant to endure. Life in Teotihuacan. What we do know is that Teotihuacan was cosmopolitan, a melting pot of cultures from across Mesoamerica. Archaeologists have uncovered barrios, or neighborhoods, where people from Oaxaca, the Gulf Coast, and even distant Maya lands lived. Its economy was rich, fueled by trade in obsidian, the volcanic glass used for blades and ornaments. Its artisans crafted pottery and murals, its priests performed elaborate rituals, its rulers commanded armies and alliances. Murals show jaguar priests, feathered serpents, and gods of rain and fire. Temples held altars where offerings of jade, shells, and even human lives were given. Teotihuacan was both metropolis and shrine, both marketplace and holy city. The Pyramid of the Sun. Climb the Pyramid of the Sun, and you ascend into myth. Built atop a cave, perhaps considered the womb of the earth, it rises in terraces, commanding the valley. From its summit one sees the Avenue of the Dead stretching like a cosmic axis, the Pyramid of the Moon framed by mountains, the Temple of the Serpent far to the south. The pyramid was once covered in plaster and paint, glowing red in the sun. Imagine it shining, a beacon visible for miles, a mountain remade by human hands to rival the gods. Rituals performed here may have invoked fertility, rain, or cosmic order. Some believe thousands gathered to watch priests ascend, flames and incense rising against the sky. Even in ruin, the place vibrates with presence. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent. If the Pyramid of the Sun was creation, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent was sacrifice. Its facade is adorned with sculpted heads of serpents and rain gods, each once painted in vivid colours. Beneath its steps, archaeologists found mass graves, scores of warriors and captives buried with weapons and ornaments, offerings to consecrate the temple. It was a place of blood, a reminder that Teotihuacan's grandeur was sustained not only by trade and faith, but by violence. Power demanded sacrifice, and the gods were fed with human life. The mystery of abandonment. By the 7th century, Teotihuacan was in decline. Around 750 CE, it was abandoned. Why? Some suggest drought, famine, or climate change weakened the city. Others point to internal unrest. Palaces burned, temples destroyed, as though the people turned against their rulers. Trade may have shifted, enemies may have risen. Whatever the cause, Teotihuacan collapsed. Its streets emptied, its pyramids fell silent. The greatest city of the Americas before the Aztecs became a ghost, its memory fading even as its stones endured. When the Aztecs arrived centuries later, they could only marvel. They believed it was here that the gods created the sun and moon, that Teotihuacan was not of men but of divinity. And perhaps, in a sense, they were right. The city is cosmos. Archaeologists note that Teotihuacan's layout aligns with celestial events. The Pyramid of the Sun is oriented to the setting of the Pleiades, the Avenue of the Dead tilted slightly off north to align with sacred mountains. The city itself was a calendar, a mirror of the heavens. For its builders, Teotihuacan was not merely a place to live, but a map of the universe, a stage where humans and gods intertwined. To walk its avenues was to walk the cosmos. To ascend its pyramids was to approach divinity, walking the Avenue of the Dead. Today, visitors walk the Avenue of the Dead in silence. The stones are cracked, the paint faded, the plaza's empty. And yet, the scale overwhelms. The pyramids loom, vast and solemn, as if waiting. Stand there at dusk and the shadows of the pyramids stretch across the valley like the fingers of giants. The air is dry, the wind carries whispers, and one feels very small. It is easy to believe the Aztecs were right, that this was the city of the gods, not of men. The ghost of Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan haunts us not only because of what remains, but because of what is absent. We do not know its people's names. We do not know their words. We do not know why they built so grand, or why they left it behind. It is a ghost city in the truest sense, monumental, yet anonymous. It is as though the stones themselves are the memory, while the people have dissolved into silence. Closing the chapter. As the night falls over the valley, the pyramids darken against a sky ablaze with stars. The Avenue of the Dead grows quiet, its stones cooling, its shadows long. Teotihuacan is gone, yet it endures, its geometry too vast to erase, its silence too deep to ignore. It is the city of the gods, a ghost civilization that still breathes in stone. It whispers that greatness can vanish, that memory can fade, but that sometimes what is built for gods survives long after mortals are forgotten. Far out in the Pacific, thousands of miles from any continent, lies a small triangle of volcanic rock. It is a speck on the map, yet one of the most famous islands in the world. To Polynesians, it is Rapa Nui. To the world, it is Easter Island. What makes this lonely place so haunting are its guardians. Hundreds of colossal statues, the Moai, their faces solemn, their backs to the sea, staring inward toward a vanished people. They are the voices of a civilization that rose in isolation, carved its dreams into stone, and then fell into collapse. The arrival. Around the 12th century, Polynesian navigators, masters of the ocean, guided by stars, winds, and waves, landed on this island. Imagine the moment. After weeks at sea, they found a volcanic shore, fertile in places, with forests, birds, and fish. They brought with them crops, chickens, and their traditions of navigation and ritual. On this tiny island, cut off from the world, they built a society, and in time they built monuments unlike any other on Earth. The Moai. The most haunting legacy of Rapa Nui are the Moai, stone giants carved from volcanic tuff, some over 30 feet tall, weighing up to 80 tons. Nearly 900 have been found, many still standing on stone platforms called ahu, others lying unfinished in quarries. The Moai represent ancestors, chiefs, or guardians. With their long noses, heavy brows, and solemn gazes, they embody presence and authority. Their backs face the sea, their eyes once inlaid with coral, gazing inward to watch over the people. The effort to carve, transport, and raise them was immense. Using only stone tools, ropes, and human strength, the islanders moved these giants across miles of rugged terrain. Some theories suggest they were walked upright with ropes, swaying like enormous puppets. However they did it, it was an achievement of extraordinary ingenuity. For centuries the Moai stood in silence, a forest of stone ancestors watching over their descendants. The Golden Age. At its height, Rapa Nui may have supported several thousand people. Villages flourished near the coast. The Moai multiplied, each clan raising its own to honour its lineage. Agriculture expanded. Sweet potatoes, bananas, and taro grown in stone gardens that conserved precious moisture. The island was a microcosm, a world unto itself, where society revolved around ancestors, ritual, and the eternal gaze of the Moai. And yet beneath this glory, strain was growing. Collapse. Rapa Nui's downfall has become one of history's most famous cautionary tales. The island was once forested with tall palms, but as the population grew and Moai building intensified, trees were cut for canoes, firewood, and the transport of statues. By the 16th century, the island was largely deforested. Without trees, soil eroded, birds disappeared, fishing declined, hunger spread. Clans turned against each other, toppling rival Moai in acts of vengeance. By the time Europeans arrived in 1722, the great statues had ceased to be raised. Many lay fallen, their faces broken against the earth. Rapa Nui had collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. The Moai, once symbols of power, had become silent witnesses to ruin. The arrival of strangers. European contact brought not salvation but further devastation. Dutch explorers arrived in 1722, followed by Spanish and English ships. With them came disease, guns, and slave raids. By the 19th century, Rapa Nui's population had plummeted to a fraction of its former size. Missionaries introduced Christianity, erasing traditional rituals. By the late 1800s, the island was annexed by Chile, and its people confined to small settlements. Much of the land turned to ranching. The Moai remained, toppled and weathered, their stone faces gazing over an island emptied of its past. Myths and memories. Even as their world crumbled, the people of Rapa Nui preserved stories of how their ancestors had raised the Moai. One legend speaks of mana, a spiritual power that chiefs and priests could harness to command the statues to move. Others tell of long-ago kings, of rival clans battling, of a time when the island was filled with abundance. Archaeologists find in these myths echoes of truth. The mana may reflect ritual authority, the spiritual energy that bound society together. The rivalries mirror the political struggles that tore the island apart. Myth and archaeology weave a picture of ambition, ingenuity, and fragility. A civilization that reached for greatness in stone but was undone by its limits. The Moai today. In the modern era, many Moai have been re-erected. Their platforms restored, their faces lifted once more to watch over the island. Tourists arrive from across the world, drawn by the mystery of the statues and the story of collapse. Yet the Moai are more than monuments. Their ancestors, still revered by the Rapa Nui people, who see in them not ruins but living presence. They are ghosts, yes, but also guardians, silent reminders that their people endured, even through devastation. Lessons of Rapa Nui. Rapa Nui's story has been told as a parable of environmental collapse, how deforestation, overuse of resources, and unchecked ambition led to ruin. It is a warning for our world, fragile in its own way, straining against its own limits. But it is also a story of resilience. The Rapa Nui people survived, their culture adapted, their language and traditions continue. The Moai still stand, symbols not only of collapse but of persistence. The ghost of Rapa Nui whispers that civilizations are fragile, but people endure. Walking among the giants. To walk among the Moai is to feel both awe and melancholy. The statues loom silent, their features weathered, their gaze eternal. The wind sweeps across the island, carrying the cries of seabirds. Grass waves over platforms where once priests chanted and clans gathered. At dawn, the Moai glow gold in rising light, their faces solemn against the horizon. At dusk, they darken into silhouettes, their presence heavy as night falls. They are not merely stone, they are memory carved in volcanic rock, guardians of a civilization that dreamed too boldly, suffered too deeply, and left behind ghosts taller than men. Closing the chapter, Rapa Nui is a paradox. It is both a story of collapse and of endurance, of silence and of memory. Its Moai are ghosts but also anchors, binding the past to the present. The lonely island of giants is not gone. It still breathes in its statues, in its people, in the waves that crash endlessly upon its volcanic shores. And as we leave Rapa Nui in our journey through ghost civilizations, we carry its lesson. That ambition can destroy, but memory endures. That even the loneliest of places can leave a mark upon the world. The Amazon is a sea of trees. From the air it stretches to the horizon in every direction. a vast unbroken canopy of green. Rivers meander like silver veins, storms gather and dissolve, and beneath the endless leaves life hums with ancient rhythm. It is a place that seems eternal, untouched, impenetrable. For centuries, explorers believed the Amazon was a wilderness without history. The soil was poor, the climate unforgiving. Surely, they thought, no great civilization could have thrived here. The jungle itself seemed to resist permanence, swallowing villages, erasing trails, devouring every mark of human hand, and yet the forest whispers otherwise. The legend of El Dorado. Long before archaeologists listened, conquistadors pursued a legend. They called it El Dorado, the Golden One. They heard tales of a city of immense wealth hidden in the rainforest, where kings covered themselves in gold dust and bathed in sacred lakes. Driven by greed, explorers searched rivers and mountains, vanishing into the jungle. They returned with nothing, or not at all. El Dorado became a fable of folly, a reminder of ambition devoured by the green abyss. But perhaps the legend was not entirely false. Perhaps there were once cities in the Amazon, cities that flourished not in stone but in earth, wood, and memory, and which the jungle reclaimed so completely that only whispers survived. The silence of the jungle. For centuries, scholars dismissed the idea of large Amazonian civilizations. Unlike the Maya or the Inca, the Amazon left no pyramids, no stone cities, no monuments to endure. The forest seemed to erase all trace. But the absence of stone does not mean the absence of civilization. The people of the Amazon built not with granite but with soil and timber. Their monuments were not pyramids, but earthworks. Their legacy lay not in ruins, but in the very soil beneath the trees. It took time and new tools for the forest to reveal its secrets. The terra preta. In the 20th century, researchers discovered patches of unusually fertile black earth scattered across the Amazon. This terra preta, or dark earth, was not natural. It had been created by humans, enriched with charcoal, bone, and compost centuries ago. The soil retained nutrients, allowing crops to flourish even in the poor Amazonian ground. Its very existence proved that ancient peoples had transformed the forest, cultivating land for sustained agriculture. Here was the first whisper of forgotten civilizations, evidence that the Amazon was not pristine wilderness, but a garden shaped by human hands. Cities beneath the canopy. Then, in the 21st century, technology pulled back the curtain. Using LiDAR, laser scanning from the air, archaeologists pierced the canopy, revealing patterns invisible from the ground. What they found astonished the world. Geometric earthworks, vast roadways, plazas, and even city-like settlements spread across the Amazon. Circles and squares cut into the land, connected by straight causeways miles long. Platforms and ditches arranged with mathematical precision. These were not random clearings. They were planned landscapes, signs of complex societies capable of organizing thousands of people, shaping Earth on a monumental scale. Some sites suggest populations of tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands once lived here. The Amazon, far from being empty, may have supported civilizations as grand in their way as those of Mesopotamia or Egypt. The Great Forgetting. And yet, by the time Europeans arrived in the 16th century, these civilizations were gone. The jungle had reclaimed their fields, swallowed their roads, erased their cities. What happened? One answer is disease. European contact brought smallpox, measles, and influenza, illnesses against which indigenous peoples had no defense. Populations collapsed, sometimes by 90% in a single generation. With so few left to maintain the earthworks and gardens, the jungle surged back, erasing centuries of human presence. By the time later explorers arrived, the Amazon seemed untouched, eternal. They could not imagine that it had once been a mosaic of cities and farms. They saw wilderness, not ruin. It was not wilderness, it was amnesia, a different kind of civilization. The Amazon's hidden cities challenge our idea of civilization. They were not built of stone or empire. They left no towering pyramids, no carved kings. But they reveal another path. Societies that lived with the forest, reshaping it gently rather than conquering it. Their earthworks suggest ritual and community, plazas for gathering, roads connecting distant clans. Their terra preta shows foresight and sustainability, an ability to flourish where nature seemed hostile. Perhaps their greatness was not in monuments, but in balance, and perhaps it is precisely this balance that allowed them to endure for centuries, until catastrophe came from beyond. Walking the Invisible City. To walk the Amazon today is to tread upon ghosts. Beneath your feet, beneath roots and leaves, lie plazas and roads, now indistinguishable from the forest. Birds cry, insects hum, monkeys leap through branches, but under the canopy lies another layer, a city silent and unseen, stand in a clearing where lidar revealed a perfect circle of ditches and embankments. To the eye it is just jungle, but in your mind's eye picture it alive, families gathered, fires burning, rituals performed under the stars. The forest hums not only with life, but with memory. El Dorado reimagined. Perhaps El Dorado was never a single city of gold, but a memory of the Amazon's many lost societies. Perhaps stories of abundance and wonder were distorted echoes of a real truth. That the forest once supported thriving civilizations, whose wealth was not gold but knowledge of how to live with the land. In this sense, El Dorado exists, not as a city of glittering treasure, but as a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity, hidden beneath the green sea of leaves. The ghost of the Amazon. What makes the hidden cities of the Amazon so haunting is their invisibility. Unlike Petra or Teotihuacan, they leave little for us to see. They are ghosts of absence, erased almost completely by time and jungle, and yet they whisper still. In Black Earth, in geometric patterns traced by laser beams, in myths of golden kings, they remind us that civilization does not always mean stone, and that the forest itself can be both cradle and grave of memory. Closing the chapter, as night falls over the Amazon, the canopy turns black, the air heavy with mist and the cries of unseen creatures. Beneath it lie cities we can barely imagine, their plazas now root and soil, their voices lost to silence. The jungle seems eternal, but it is not. It is layered with memory, with civilizations hidden beneath its leaves. And as we listen, we realize the Amazon is not wilderness, but ghost, haunted not by emptiness, but by forgetting. The hidden cities remain, invisible yet alive in the soil, waiting for us to remember. The earth remembers, but not always. Mountains rise, rivers shift, seas advance, and fire reshapes the land. What seems eternal is often fragile, and what is lost is not always lost to time, but to the earth itself. Civilizations live upon a restless planet, a world where catastrophe is not an exception, but a rhythm. Floods, quakes, eruptions, and storms. These are the editors of history, erasing what once was, leaving only fragments for us to guess at. Perhaps that is why ghost civilizations haunt us so deeply. They are not only the failures of men, but the silences imposed by the earth, the moments when memory itself was washed away. The great floods. Nearly every culture on earth tells of a flood. From the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical Noah, from Hindu stories of Manu to Native American legends, the tale is the same. Waters rose, lands drowned, people scattered. Were these only myths, or do they echo real events? At the end of the last ice age, between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago, glaciers melted, seas rose by more than 100 meters, and coastlines shifted across the globe. Vast stretches of land, continental shelves, fertile plains, river valleys, vanished beneath the ocean. Imagine the trauma of those centuries, villages swallowed, fertile hunting grounds lost, islands becoming seas. For the people who lived then, it must have felt as if the world itself had turned against them. Is it any wonder they preserved the memory as story, as warning, as myth? If civilizations did rise in those drowned lands, the ocean now hides them. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, perhaps these names are echoes of real places, real losses, magnified into legend. Fire from the earth. Not only water but fire has reshaped memory. Consider Santorini in the Aegean Sea. Around 1600 BCE, its volcano erupted with such force that the island split apart, its centre collapsing into a caldera. Ash rained across the Mediterranean, tsunamis struck Crete, and the flourishing Minoan civilization faltered. Was this the origin of Plato's Atlantis? Perhaps. Or consider Pompeii and Herculaneum, buried in hours beneath the ash of Vesuvius. Their people frozen in time, their homes entombed. For centuries they were forgotten until rediscovered as ghosts beneath the earth. Further still, Krakatoa in 1883, whose eruption darkened skies around the world, or Tambora in 1815, which caused the year without summer. These remind us how fragile memory is in the face of fire. What if entire cities, Entire cultures were erased in eruptions before history began. The shaking earth. Earthquakes too have swallowed civilizations. In 365 CE, an earthquake and tsunami devastated Alexandria, sinking ships in its harbour, toppling temples and erasing coastal towns. In the 14th century, an earthquake shattered Kashgar in Central Asia, leaving ruins still visible in desert sands. And there are the earthquakes we cannot name, the ones that shook unnamed cities into rubble, erasing them so completely that only silence remains. Perhaps Yonaguni's underwater monument is such a memory, a city shaken into the sea, later mistaken for natural rock. Perhaps Ubar collapsed into a sinkhole when the ground beneath it failed. The earth does not distinguish between great and small. It shakes and memory falls. The sky itself. At times, catastrophe has come not from earth or sea, but from the sky. Tunguska, 1908. A meteor exploded over Siberia, flattening forests for miles. If it had struck a city, it would have erased it utterly. Some scientists propose that around 12,800 years ago, a comet impact or airburst triggered the Younger Dryas, a sudden return to Ice Age cold, devastating early cultures. Could this have erased whole societies, leaving only the barest traces? Even myths speak of fire from the sky, bolts of light, suns falling, stars striking the earth. Perhaps these are not only metaphors but memories. Earth's amnesia. The earth is restless. Its seas rise and fall, its volcanoes burn, its crust trembles, its skies rain fire. And in this restlessness lies forgetting. Stone crumbles, wood rots, clay dissolves. A city left untended is erased in centuries, a civilization in millennia. Without writing, without monuments, memory dissolves almost completely. And so, entire chapters vanish. Civilizations may have risen on coasts now drowned, in valleys now desert, in plains now forest. The earth has no obligation to preserve them. It is we who hope, who search, who cling to fragments. The silence beneath our feet. Even now, archaeologists uncover hints of forgotten worlds. A temple beneath a field, a road beneath jungle roots, a city buried in desert sands. Each discovery reminds us, history is not linear but layered. The earth is a palimpsest, written and erased again and again. We live upon ruins, often unaware. Beneath London lie Roman streets. Beneath Rome lie Etruscan tombs. Beneath Mexico City lies Tenochtitlan. Beneath them all lie older stories too far gone to recall. If this is true for known history, how much more for prehistory? How many worlds lie buried too deep, drowned too thoroughly, erased too completely? Ghosts we cannot name. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, Ubar, Cahokia, Mohenjo-Daro. These we can name, even if dimly. But how many civilizations remain nameless, erased so utterly that even myth does not recall them? They are the truest ghosts, present only as absence. And yet, perhaps, sometimes we feel them, in inexplicable ruins, in myths that echo across continents, in the intuition that we are not the first, nor the only, to walk this earth with vision and ambition. Closing the chapter, stand at the edge of the sea at dusk and watch the tide rise. Picture villages swallowed long ago. Stand on volcanic ash and remember that fire can erase memory in a moment. Stand in a forest clearing and imagine the city beneath your feet, forgotten but not gone. The earth remembers but imperfectly. Its memory is broken by catastrophe, its archives scattered. What survives is chance, not choice, and so we live in amnesia. We inherit a world full of silences, full of absences, full of ghosts. And perhaps that is why we tell stories of Atlantis, of floods, of fire from the sky, because deep down we know the earth has forgotten and we are trying to remember for it. When ruins are gone and bones have turned to dust, only stories remain. Myths, symbols and rituals, the fragile vessels of memory, carry fragments of civilizations long vanished. They are not precise, not literal, but they endure in ways stone does not. Across the world, in temples and firesides, in chants and carvings, echoes linger. They speak of floods, of towers, of golden ages, of cities swallowed by time. They are the whispers of ghost civilizations, preserved not in walls, but in words. Myths as memory. Myths are not history in the way chronicles are. They bend, they change, they exaggerate, and yet they hold something deeper, the emotional truth of memory. The flood myths of the world, for instance, may not describe one single event, but they echo the trauma of rising seas after the Ice Age. The stories of sunken kingdoms, Atlantis in Greece, Kumari Kandam in India, Cantre'r Gwaelod in Wales, may be distorted memories of real coastal lands drowned long ago. Myths preserve not dates, but meanings. They tell us that something was lost, that human greatness was fragile, that nature could undo what men had built. The language of symbols. Even when words are forgotten, symbols remain. Think of the spiral, carved on stones in Ireland, in Mesoamerica, in the Pacific. It is the same shape, repeating across continents, across millennia. Is it coincidence, or an echo of a shared vision? Cycles of time, the turning of stars, the whirl of water, or the serpent, winding through myth in every land, the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica, the Nagas of India, the rainbow serpent of Australia. Each different, yet each carrying the same sense of primal power, life, danger, rebirth. Symbols may be the oldest language of humanity. In them we glimpse ideas that transcended civilizations, whispers of a shared memory too deep to name. Sacred architecture. Sometimes myths and symbols take form in stone itself. The pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the step pyramids of Mesoamerica, each built by cultures separated by oceans, yet each echoing the same instinct. To build mountains where there were none, to ascend toward heaven, to bridge earth and sky. Was this parallel invention, or a memory carried across migrations? Perhaps both. What matters is the echo, the repetition of form, the persistence of the dream. Even stone circles from Stonehenge to Nabta Playa to the medicine wheels of North America echo one another. Circles of stone aligned with sun and stars, sacred calendars in rock. Across time and space, humanity carved its myths into geometry, leaving echoes we still feel. Oral traditions. Among indigenous peoples, oral traditions carry memories that stretch back astonishingly far. In Australia, Aboriginal stories describe landscapes that were flooded when seas rose 10,000 years ago, accounts now confirmed by geology. In the Pacific, Polynesian chants recall migrations across oceans, guiding canoes by stars with precision. In the Americas, native traditions speak of ancient cities, of great floods, of mountains that once erupted in fire. These stories remind us that myth can be a kind of archive, fragile but enduring. What archaeology forgets, myth sometimes remembers. Gods as ghosts. Many gods may themselves be echoes of forgotten rulers or ancestors, deified kings, remembered not as men but as beings larger than life. Over centuries their names blur, their deeds magnify, until they are no longer human but divine. The Greek gods who lived on Olympus, the Maya lords of Xibalba, the deities of Sumer, perhaps some were once people, their stories preserved and transformed until history became myth. In this way, civilizations live on in the pantheons of later peoples, their memory transmuted into the language of the sacred. The persistence of archetypes. Carl Jung spoke of archetypes, the deep symbols that recur in dreams and myths across cultures. Whether or not we accept his psychology, the recurrence is undeniable. The dying and rising god, the great flood, the lost paradise, the trickster, the hero's journey. These archetypes may not only be products of the psyche, but echoes of real patterns in history, cycles of rise and fall, disaster and renewal, encoded into stories so deeply that they reappear everywhere. When a people lose their city, they tell of a paradise lost. When they survive catastrophe, they tell of floods and fire. When they rebuild, they tell of heroes who descended into chaos and returned. Archetypes are the bones of ghost civilizations, stripped of detail but alive in spirit. The shadows in our dreams. Even today, in dreams and art, we see ruins that never were. Cities that feel familiar but are not on any map. Psychologists call them constructs of the subconscious. But perhaps they are something else too. Ancestral memory. Deep whispers of civilizations erased from history but not from the human spirit. When we dream of climbing impossible stairways, of wandering vast empty streets, of towers rising and falling, we may be touching the same echoes that gave birth to myths of Atlantis, Lemuria, and El Dorado. Myth as resistance. Ghost civilizations live in myth not only as memory but as resistance. Conquered peoples preserve their stories in disguised form, hiding their gods within new religions, their histories within allegory. Myths become the last refuge of identity when all else is taken. In this sense, ghost civilizations are not only erased, they endure defiantly, whispering their truth beneath the surface of dominant cultures. Between truth and imagination, skeptics dismiss myths as fantasy, but that is too simple. Myths are neither pure truth nor pure invention. They are bridges, half memory, half dream. They preserve fragments of reality within a fabric of imagination. To study them is not to find exact facts, but to hear echoes, to sense the rhythm of loss and rebirth, to feel the emotional truth of what it means for civilizations to vanish. Closing the chapter, stand by a fire at night, listening to a story told in words older than writing. The flames flicker, shadows dance, and the tale unfolds of a flood, of a golden city, of gods who once walked the earth. Perhaps it is only story, perhaps it is memory, perhaps both. For myths are how ghost civilizations survive, shadows of the past echoing in the present, not in stone, but in symbols, in rituals, in the stories we still tell. When we listen to myth, we listen to the voices of the forgotten, and sometimes, if we are quiet enough, we hear the faint heartbeat of worlds erased but not gone. For most of history, the ruins of vanished cities lay hidden in plain sight. Farmers ploughed fields over temples, shepherds grazed flocks upon buried streets. Travellers camped among shattered columns, unaware of the stories beneath their feet. Ghost civilizations lingered not only in myth, but in the earth itself, waiting for their voices to be heard again. Archaeology is the language by which we coax those voices back into the world. It is the art of listening to stones, of reading soil, of piecing together fragments of memory. It is a dialogue with the past, fragile and imperfect, but profound. The first rediscoveries. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Europeans began to look at ruins not as curiosities, but as windows into lost worlds. Pompeii and Herculaneum were uncovered in Italy, their frescoes and bodies revealing Roman life frozen in ash. In Mesopotamia, explorers stumbled upon the buried cities of Nineveh and Babylon, their walls inscribed with cuneiform. Slowly, scholars learned to read those wedge-shaped signs, unlocking epics that had slept for millennia. The tales of Gilgamesh, the laws of Hammurabi, the laments of forgotten kings. Egypt's hieroglyphs, once silent, spoke again through the Rosetta Stone. Temples of Karnak and Abu Simbel rose from the desert, their gods and pharaohs remembered. Each discovery was a resurrection. Ghost civilizations stepped out of shadow and into history, their stories pieced together shard by shard. The tools of memory. As archaeology grew, so did its tools. What once was done with spade and notebook is now aided by technologies that pierce the earth and sky. Radiocarbon dating tells us the age of bones and wood. Ground-penetrating radar sees beneath the soil without disturbing it. Satellite imaging maps lost roads and fields invisible from the ground. And LIDAR, laser scanning from the air, cuts through jungle canopy, revealing entire cities hidden beneath forests. Through these tools, civilizations once dismissed as myths re-emerge. The jungle yields Maya cities sprawling far larger than imagined. The Amazon reveals geometric earthworks beneath its trees. Even deserts and seas, once thought impenetrable, begin to surrender their secrets. The drama of rediscovery. There is a peculiar drama to rediscovery. Imagine the moment when Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, peering into golden chambers untouched for millennia. Yes, wonderful things, he whispered. Or when Heinrich Schliemann, guided by Homer's verses, unearthed Troy, long thought a legend. Or when divers off Egypt's coast saw statues rising from the seabed, confirming Heraklion was real. In each case, a myth stepped into history and history into flesh. The ghosts of civilizations revealed themselves, dazzling, humbling, reminding us of how much we had forgotten. The ethics of unearthing. Yet archaeology is not only wonder, it raises questions. Whose past is it? Who has the right to dig, to display, to interpret? Too often, colonial explorers claimed ruins as trophies, carrying statues and mummies into foreign museums. For descendants of those civilizations, the ghosts were not curiosities, but ancestors. Today, archaeology wrestles with these questions. Excavation must balance curiosity with respect, discovery with dignity. For ghost civilizations are not just academic puzzles. They are the memories of people still living, their echoes entwined with modern identity. Ghost civilizations reborn. The rediscovery of lost civilizations is not only about ruins, it reshapes how we see ourselves. When Troy was unearthed, the line between myth and history blurred. When the Maya's sprawling cities were revealed, the story of the Americas deepened. When Göbekli Tepe rose from Anatolia, 12,000 years old, it shattered our timelines, showing that ritual and monument came before agriculture. Each ghost civilization reborn forces us to rewrite the story of humanity. Each tells us that we have underestimated ourselves, that our ancestors dreamed, built, and remembered in ways we had forgotten. The unfinished story. Yet archaeology is far from finished. Vast parts of the earth remain unexplored. Deserts conceal buried temples. Forests hide lost roads. Oceans cover entire continents of memory. For every Petra, every Mohenjo-Daro, every Teotihuacan, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds of cities still waiting. Some will be uncovered. Others will remain ghosts forever, erased too thoroughly by time. This is the paradox of archaeology. It reveals, but never completely. It teases fragments, but never the whole. The ghosts whisper, but never shout. The romance of the unknown. Perhaps that is why ghost civilizations haunt us so deeply. Not because archaeology has revealed them fully, but because it has not. The gaps, the silences, the unanswered questions, they give us room to dream. We imagine Atlantis beneath the waves, Lemuria beneath the Indian Ocean, golden cities in the Amazon. Even when proof is absent, the desire to remember persists. The unknown becomes a mirror for our longing. Archaeology brings us closer, but it never erases mystery. And maybe that is its gift, standing among the ruins. To walk through an excavated city is to feel the dialogue between past and present. In Pompeii, frescoes still show lovers and banquets, their colours bright as if painted yesterday. In Petra, facades still glow red at sunset. In Teotihuacan, pyramids still command the horizon. Each ruin is alive with memory, yet empty of life. You stand where thousands once stood, hear silence where once was laughter. It is like stepping into a dream, half there, half gone. That is the essence of rediscovery, to feel presence in absence, to listen for echoes in stone. Closing the chapter, archaeology does not banish ghost civilizations. It does not silence mystery. It gives us fragments, glimpses, whispers made visible, but the ghosts remain. Perhaps that is how it must be, for if we knew everything, the enchantment would fade. It is the unknown that draws us, the silence that compels us to listen. As long as ruins lie buried, as long as myths whisper of cities we cannot find, the work of archaeology will continue, not only in the soil, but in the imagination. The ghosts of civilizations will never leave us, for they are part of us. They remind us that we too are fragile, temporary, and that one day our cities may be whispers for others to rediscover. We have walked through drowned harbours and jungle labyrinths, along deserts of shifting sand and into canyons of rose-red stone. We have touched civilizations that flourished, then disappeared, leaving behind only fragments and silence. What unites them is not geography or language, not gods or empires, but absence. They are all ghost civilizations remembered in ruins, in myths, in whispers. They remind us that history is not a steady march, but a fragile mosaic, one in which entire pieces can vanish, leaving only outlines for us to guess at. As we close this journey, let us linger in the spaces between ruins, in the silence where memory fades, and listen for what the ghosts still tell us. The fragility of greatness. Every civilization believed itself enduring. The builders of Teotihuacan thought their pyramids eternal. The Nabateans of Petra mastered water in the desert, believing abundance secure. The rulers of Cahokia raised mounds taller than forests, confident of their future. And yet, each fell. Not in centuries of slow decline alone, but sometimes in moments. Storms, quakes, invasions, droughts. Greatness is fragile. Their ruins remind us of our own impermanence. Our cities, vast and gleaming, may one day be ruins too. Grass growing through cracked pavement, skyscrapers swallowed by vines. To walk among ghost civilizations is to glimpse our own reflection in time's mirror, the power of memory. And yet, though fragile, they are not gone. Memory endures, sometimes in stone, sometimes in myth, sometimes in whispers so faint they seem like dreams. The Moai of Rapa Nui still gaze over the island. The canals of Nan Madol still hold moonlight. The great bath of Mohenjo-Daro still echoes with imagined waters. Petra still glows crimson at sunset. Even when writing fails, memory survives in story. Flood myths echo ancient trauma. Legends of sunken cities echo real losses. Oral traditions carry landscapes drowned 10,000 years ago. Civilizations may die, but memory lingers, and in that memory they still live. The role of mystery. What makes ghost civilization so haunting is not only what we know, but what we do not. Atlantis, Lemuria, Ubar, the sunken city of Cuba, these remain half seen, half believed. They tantalize us with fragments but never yield certainty, and perhaps that is their true power. For mystery compels us to imagine, to dream, to wonder. If everything were known, the past would be a museum case, clear, ordered, lifeless. But because so much is lost, it is alive. Its silence pulls at us, drawing us into dialogue with the unknown, the whispers of the earth. The earth itself whispers of what it has erased. Rising seas, shifting rivers, burning mountains, trembling ground, all have shaped human destiny. Civilizations rise not only through ingenuity, but also through harmony with forces beyond their control. When harmony fails, the earth remembers in its own way, burying, drowning, erasing. But never completely. Always fragments remain, enough to haunt, enough to remind. It is as if the earth allows us glimpses, as if it too wants us to remember what it has hidden. Lessons for the living. Ghost civilizations are not only curiosities, they are warnings, lessons, and invitations. They warn us that hubris is dangerous, that resources can be exhausted, that even the greatest cities can fall. They remind us of resilience, of how people adapt, endure, survive even when cities crumble. And they invite us to humility. To walk among ruins is to feel small, to know that we are but one chapter in a long book, and that our page too will one day turn. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this, that civilizations die, but humanity endures. We carry forward fragments, stories, echoes. We are the descendants not of one civilization, but of many, known and unknown, the eternal whispers. Close your eyes and listen. You hear the chants of priests in Teotihuacan, echoing down the Avenue of the Dead, the splash of water in Petra's cisterns, trickling in the desert silence, the laughter of children on Cahokia's plazas, the crash of waves over Duarca's walls, the whisper of wind across Ubar's dunes, the slow, patient hum of the Amazon cradling cities hidden in green. These sounds are gone, yet they linger. They are whispers carried across time. Ghost civilizations do not vanish. They live in us, in the stories we tell, in the myths we inherit, in the ruins we preserve, in the awe we feel when we stand before what time should have destroyed but did not. Closing the journey, we began with an open question. What happens to civilizations that disappear without a trace? Now, after walking through deserts, jungles, and oceans, perhaps the answer is simple. They never truly vanish. They transform into memory, into myth, into silence that hums with presence. They become ghosts, not terrifying, but solemn, patient, eternal. As you drift towards sleep, let the ghosts accompany you. Let Petra's cliffs glow in your dreams. Let Nan Madol's canals shimmer beneath moonlight. Let Rapa Nui's giants watch over you. Know that the earth is full of forgotten cities, and that every step we take is over layers of history, every breath over echoes of the lost. Ghost civilizations are not gone. They are with us still, whispering. And if you are quiet enough, you may hear them,